Hello there, my name's Neil David and I'm the host of Eurograps Express, the podcast exclusively dedicated to the wrestling of Europe. If it's wrestling and it happens in Europe and it's good, we talk about it. Whether it's Rev Pro, Progress, WXW, Passion Pro, Pro Wrestling Chaos, Pro Wrestling North, we don't care, we talk about them all. If it's good and it's exciting, I want to share it with you. We're on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Check us out on the feed. Check us out on Twitter at EuroGrapsEXP. And join us for chat about European wrestling and a little bit of chat about cheese. Hopefully see you there.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
What do you guys want to talk about?
You are listening to the Flagship Podcast with your hosts, Joe Lanza.
You know what I want out of my wrestling? I want Bryan Danielson versus Yuji Nagata, and then a week later, Bryan Danielson versus Hechicero. Yes. Why? Because fuck you, that's why. That's what I want out of my wrestling.
Rich Craich.
The biggest wrestling story of all time, and these fans whoosh, right over their head. So they can go yeet, yeet,
Yeah.
yeet, yeet, and share Samantha Irvin TikTok videos with each other. That's what we've created. Those are the fans now. And we are live on the Flagship Podcast. I am Rich. He is Joe. Joe, what is happening? We are here on a Wednesday. We have just seen the all-in footage that aired on Dynamite. We have to do a Wednesday show this week because of a vacation I have coming up, so we can't do tomorrow, but that's fine. It worked out perfectly. We go live now immediately after AEW Dynamite shows the all-in backstage footage. And, yeah, it was a thing. I don't know what kind of thing it was, but I don't know. Let's talk about it.
I mean, that was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, right. It was kind of... It was exactly, I think, what we all... I mean, is that kind of what you exactly thought the whole thing was? Because it's kind of like when I watched it, I was waiting for maybe one thing different than what I kind of assumed the fight was, and it was kind of exactly what I thought the fight was, but maybe even less so than what I thought it was.
It's not what I thought it was going to be, because I figured if they were showing it, they had some kind of goods to show.
Right.
There was... I mean, this was nothing. I mean, this was basically the plainest explanation of what we all thought happened. So, you know, obviously it just comes across as a ratings ploy, and we'll see if that works. We'll see what the quarter hour does. It's, I don't think Tony Khan or AEW come across very well now that we've seen it.
No.
Because the thing about it is they didn't even really get a good angle to come out of it either, because basically the angle portion of it is the Bucks blaming the incident for distracting them and blaming that on their loss to FTR. And then FTR comes out and cuts a live promo to the crowd, kind of, you know, playing the other side, like, why did we even show this or whatever? But that's not even an interesting angle to come out of it. Now, if the footage is a giant nothing, like this appeared to be, and then you at least get a hot angle coming out of it, or the return of Jack Perry, something. But this was, I mean, this was not, you didn't even get an interesting or creative angle to come out of it. And as far as the incident itself, I mean, you know, Punk on Helwani claimed that Jack Perry got in his face and all up in his personal space, and he had to do what he had to do. Well, yeah, that wasn't really the case. Perry looks calm. Perry looks relatively calm. He's just fixing it. In fact, when
throwing his hair back, right before Punk goes for the choke or whatever, he's just kind of pulling his hair back.
Yeah, Perry's kind of like fixing his hair, like you're saying, when Punk initially strikes him with the first shove, and then he locks him in a guillotine choke, and people rush in to break it up. Samoa Joe was over on the left side of the screen, just, you know, getting in the right mental space for his match and warming up. And you see Hook meandering around because his match had just ended. And then Chris Hero and Jerry Lynn and Joe are the ones that break it up, and Joe drags Perry away. And Perry's kind of just like, what the fuck was that? You know, and then Punk does knock and slap the equipment at presumably Tony Khan.
Right. I think we can safely assume that Tony is behind that wall. We don't see his face. I think you see him briefly for 1 second. You see him kind of stand up a little bit and reach out. I don't know for sure if that was him, but I'm almost positive that was him. Is the guy behind the monitors there that Punk then, after he puts Perry in the guillotine, then goes around the corner of the monitors, says something to someone behind the monitors, and that's when he's taken away by Jerry Lynn. And I forget I didn't see who the other guy was that took him away.
It was Chris Hero.
Well, is that okay? I was like, man, that guy looks a lot like Chris Hero. I forgot that he was helping out with them at that time.
It looked like Chris Hero to me. I don't know. Who else could it have been?
I don't know. Okay,
it was Chris Hero
because it looked a lot like Chris Hero, but I thought that he came in there later. But maybe he was there for that. Whatever, because there's one guy you see walk
in like the fuchsia shirt or whatever.
Yeah.
That's Chris Hero. I think that's Chris Hero.
Okay, it looked a lot like him. So okay, that's who I thought it was, because you see him kind of when it's all done and Punk gets sent. I mean, Jerry Lynn sends Punk like back to his locker room or whatever, and you see Chris Hero like just rub his temple and like pull his hair back a little bit. If that's who I think it is, just kind of like, god damn it. All right, here we go. So that guy's seen some shit. He's seen some shit over those years.
He shakes his head like this is a joke, right? That's his reaction.
Okay. I thought that was Chris Hero, so I'm glad that I think it was too.
It is. I'm almost positive. And then you see Sanjay Dutt running in at the very end, and he kind of runs right over to Perry. But I saw some people say that was Christopher Daniels. That was that man was too small of build. That was Sanjay Dutt who comes running in the gray suit.
Yeah. Daniels is a little bit bigger than people think.
Danielson's a little thicker than Dutt. I think the bald head, obviously, grainy Sasquatch footage. I get it. But anyway, so that was basically it. You see him knock some monitors and things at Tony Khan. We can't see Khan, but we know it's Khan because that's the gorilla position. And Punk even said that after it got broken up with Perry, he went after Khan, called him a clown, and said, "I quit." Now he left out the part that he knocked stuff all over him. He did not appear to lunge at Tony Khan. He didn't come anywhere close to making physical contact with him. And, at least based, it doesn't look like he can't make because he never really leaves the screen. Punk.
No, he kind of, like I said, he goes around the monitors, and maybe that was interpreted. And we don't see what Punk's arms do when he goes around that wall. He goes around that wall for a brief second.
Take another look at it. Yeah, he may have lunged at him or threatened him in that moment where he goes around. Yeah, where he's kind of behind the wall, between the wall and the monitors. But my whole thing is, look, Punk obviously doesn't come across well here. I mean, he attacks Perry seemingly unprovoked. We can't hear what Perry's saying, but Perry doesn't appear aggressive. He's not. He doesn't. His body language isn't aggressive. They're having a conversation where Punk looks like he's the more heated one out of the two, and then he just shoves him when it looks like Perry doesn't expect that's coming, and then he snatches him in the front face lock or guillotine, whatever you want to call it. It's broken up within seconds. So as far as I can't imagine. And again, we're doing this live on a Wednesday, moments after we watched it. I haven't seen anything other than what's going on in our chat right now. I can't imagine AEW isn't getting buried and laughed at.
And they absolutely deserve it.
In all corners.
They deserve it.
Yeah, I mean, because at least if you have an angle come out of it, that's one thing. Right, if there's a hot angle that comes out of it, or something,
a smoking gun, or something that was like, I mean, with the
that's what I mean. If there's no smoking gun, you at least have to have a hot angle.
Right, we didn't have a hot angle or a smoking gun. We had, I mean, I think the Bucks, their prelude to it was fun and interesting, and it got them over as heels or whatever. So then you see the footage, and there's nothing really happening, and then FTR comes out, and they're kind of all of us being like, "What are we doing? Why are we even showing this? Who cares? We got a match at Dynasty." So yeah. And he kind of tries to do like they try to do the rally the troops thing, like we're all in here together, you guys gave us a job and that sort of stuff, but not. And it's just, it comes across like, and the crowd wasn't even that hot for it. It wasn't like the crowd kind of felt a little bit of what I felt like secondhand embarrassment of just like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like what is this? And
it's clear ratings play.
And did you see Tony Schiavone when they came back to the table with him?
Yeah, I saw him just kind of looking down and not looking into the camera. And
this guy has been through a company that was sputtering and desperate and going for any little ratings play it could possibly go for, and doing any little thing it could possibly do to pop a quarter hour, pop a number, do anything like that. Just these petty, weird, dumb things that don't make any sense. Man, Tony had PTSD right there. That was WCW stuff here, and this is what we kind of saw here. I hate to always use that comparison because everybody always goes to it right away, and I'm very careful to not use that comparison because I don't think that's fair. But this was WCW shit by AEW here. Like, what are you gaining from this? What other than you're popping 1 quarter hour? But man, it feels just like the desperation to pop that quarter hour felt palpable after you're done watching this, being like, well, that was it. It was like what we kind of all thought it was going to be. No smoking gun, no good angle. Yes, you're quote unquote putting heat on the tag match, but man, it's one of these classic things that we talk about. There's not going to be any heat on the Young Bucks. Nobody's on Twitter talking about the Young Bucks. Young Bucks weren't even involved in it. They're trying to make themselves be involved in it by the way that they're trying to tell the story or whatever, but they're not involved in it. So all the heat is going to go on AEW and Tony Khan, and specifically Tony Khan and the company and all that sort of stuff. There's no heat that's going to be directed the Young Bucks way. There's no heat that's going to be directed any other way. It's just going to come across like you said. People are just going to kind of lambast them and make fun of them for like their desperate ratings ploy here. That really just at the end when you're done, you look and it's like, oh, all right, cool, yeah, you know. Yeah. And Classic Catch in our chat room has a great point. Like, what new fans get created here? Who is going to see this? Who's a new fan that's going to see this and go, oh man, I'm in all the way now? And who was like not on AEW's side that's going to watch this footage and be like, oh god damn it, I've been wrong all along. This is like,
well, this isn't going to change. Now look,
it wasn't going to change anyone's. Yeah, it was never going to change
anyone's mind anyway.
Yeah.
You know, Punk could have pulled out a Uzi and murdered people, and Punk's people are still going to support.
Right,
Punk.
he could have kicked a baby back there, and someone would have said, "Well, why does Tony Khan have a baby back there? That's irresponsible for Tony to have a baby back there."
Right? Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, but yeah, this is it was a whole lot of nothing. Quick breaking news: Akebono has passed away at the age of 54.
Shit.
We'll get to that.
Yeah.
In a bit, but Dave Meltzer is the one I see reporting that. Here's the tweet. Akebono, one of the greatest sumos of all time, who later had a long run as a pro wrestling headliner, passed away at 54. So we will talk a bit about Akebono, who probably, was better in All Japan at the end of his career than people give him credit for. But we'll get to that after we get through some of these other segments here. But this is a big L for Tony Khan. This is a big L for AEW. I think that he should have been talked out of this one. Maybe people did try to talk him out of this one. I had opined that if the footage was a giant nothing, that the Bucks are kind of too savvy to attach themselves to something like that. So I'm surprised that they wanted anything to do with this based on, what ended up, coming out of this. Like I said, not even a creative angle. I mean, you can live with it if there's a big angle that comes out of it. Nothing came out of it. I thought maybe Jack Perry would be back, being that, there's plenty of time to get back from, when was Dantaku? Yeah, he could have been back.
Sakura Genesis. Sakura Genesis.
Whatever. Yeah, Sakura Genesis.
Oh, and he's got to be in Chicago in 3 days or tomorrow, right? Or Friday. He's got to be in Chicago by Friday. So yeah, he should probably be in the country now, I would assume at this point.
So, but nothing came out of it. And the footage was, and it almost, it's almost a situation where it's like in a vacuum. Yeah, Punk, as per the usual, comes across like a gigantic fucking asshole in the footage, right? But he almost comes out of this looking better because there was nothing to it. Because there was nothing we didn't expect. You know what I mean? So it's like he wins because...
It wasn't like there was some new angle that we saw, like where he throws a monitor at Tony Khan and kicks Sanjay Dutt and does... It's like, it's a quick little scuffle. He does the guillotine and then it gets broken up and then he goes away. And it's like, all right, yeah, that's kind of what we all saw the story. Like, to your point, like, this is exactly what I thought it was going to be. And I guess that I'm like you, that I figured if we were going to do this, that there was something here. If the Ariel Helwani interview enraged Tony Khan enough to say, I'm releasing this footage, you felt like it was like, I got something that's going to really prove that this guy's a total fucking asshole. And it's like, it was just kind of boilerplate Punk asshole stuff. You know what I mean? Like, Punk's a contentious guy who gets upset about stuff easily. And we saw it play out in real time. And it's like, okay. But I didn't see anything that was like, oh my God, I thought he was an asshole, but this is really crossing the line. Like, nothing he did
absolutely not
cross the line. It was just kind of your bog standard pro wrestling backstage fight. There's been much worse.
Your bog standard CM Punk behavior.
Right.
Just attacking someone who doesn't appear to be aggressive at all and acting like a complete lunatic and then knocking over monitors and shit. I mean, but it's crazy by airing this and airing it in the manner of which they did with the several day build and all, and building up people's anticipation. They end up in making CM Punk come out of this looking rosy.
Right.
I mean, and the fact is, he was a gigantic fucking asshole, who was completely out of line. And that was, clearly a fireable. Those were fireable actions. Those are, that he deserved to be terminated for those actions. Now he claims he quit. So, it's one of these, I quit. No, you were fired. It's whatever. Right. It's like, at that point,
we're both done. We're both done with the situation.
Over.
Yeah. It doesn't matter who said what at what time. It's over. Both parties agree that we're done.
Yeah. You could have said you quit, but you were going to get fired anyway. So, because this also was not your first go round with any of this. So, excuse me. Yeah. I just think pretty cringe, there's a pretty big L, and even if it pops a quarter, yeah, you could see Chris Hero like with his head in his hands, like
that's definitely Chris Hero. Yeah, I'm re-looking. I'm looking at it again. It's definitely Chris Hero, and the look he has on his face is like, oh my god, here we go again, like, because he's kind of a well-adjusted human being in this world of lunatics. So yeah, he seems like the type of guy who would just be like, come on.
I mean, there's a couple minor Punk lies, but nothing that's going to pin him to the wall. I mean, Jack Perry did not get in his personal space and up in his face and all of that like he claimed. The way he described the fight was exactly how it went down. He didn't come with a posse of friends like he claimed. You see Malachi Black drift in towards the end of it. But, he claimed, I had all this backup because I have a lot of friends. And no, he came by himself, so... he framed it like he had all this great support, but those are minor things. There's nothing here that would, that makes him any worse than you would already think of him if you already think of him negatively because of all of this. And then he just storms off, presumably to just go back to his locker room like he said he did.
Right. Before Jerry Lynn and Samoa Joe say, fucker, get out there. Let's do this.
Right. Correct. And yeah, so, it's man, whole lot of nothing.
Really, yeah.
So it's maybe Khan would have been better off just airing the footage, the fight against the fight with the Bucks, and then just obviously he'd end up in court. But fuck it, it may have been more impactful than this. It may have been worth the court case. I don't like Stephen P. News chances against whatever $1 billion attorneys the Khans could hire. So fuck it. He should have just aired that, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to look at Twitter now. It's, they're not getting dragged as bad as I thought they would. Everyone's kind of just like, that's it.
Yeah, I wonder if it's going to take like 24 hours for everybody to kind of process and be like, wait a minute, what the fuck? What was the goal here? Like, what was the end game of all this? And I guess that's kind of what like the end game either had to be, but even then, like even if it was some smoking gun against Punk, why do we care? Why as AEW, what you need to do is you need to have a good hot angle out of this. You need to have some sort of hot angle out of this. I'm not buying that this, helps Jack Perry come back after, Windy City Riot. Like, 'cause I don't know. It didn't really, Perry doesn't come across like, I tend to think that Perry being a little bit more in the dark of this whole thing actually helps his character a little bit more, because you don't know what he did. You don't know if he started the fight. You don't know if he got any licks in on Punk. You know what I mean? Without having any of that, I kind of think that's better for him to walk in with like an asshole smug look on his face and, yeah, I'm the scapegoat or whatever. Now he looks like a guy who did nothing, got choked. Like, he quite literally looks like the scapegoat, which, I thought the whole angle was going to be you want him to come in as a heel. And now it's like he comes in, I think, colder now, because it's just like, yeah, he was just kind of calm, cool, collected, and this guy choked him. And then he got suspended. So I guess if you want to put sympathy on Jack Perry and, again, put heat on Tony Khan, no one's going to put heat on the Young Bucks here. People are going to put heat on Tony Khan and Tony Khan alone. Like, I guess you can do that, but what the fuck good does that do? What the fuck good does heat on Tony Khan do in this situation?
But I feel like he's going to be aligned with the Bucks and be a heel, though.
Right.
And it's like,
which is why I don't think showing the footage was bad. Yeah, I think it was stupid then.
It wasn't beneficial because Perry comes across calm and like he's not expecting to be attacked. And he doesn't come across aggressive at all in the footage. the footage almost completely exonerates him from that standpoint of, oh, did he instigate a fight? Doesn't look like he instigated a fight to me. Now, we can't hear what he's saying, but body language and mannerisms are not indicative of someone.
Look, we've all been in fights. We've all been in fights. We've all stopped a fight right before it was going to begin. We've helped a friend in a fight.
Yeah.
We've watched a friend get in a fight. Nothing that Perry is doing, his body language is not the guy that's about ready to start a fight.
No.
Or wants to start a fight.
He doesn't. Nope. He doesn't look like a guy who's ready for a fight at all throughout the whole thing. He's kind of like, he's talking, like he's having the conversation. He's got like his head tilted. Like you could tell he's, not shying away from the conversation. But in terms of someone's body being tense and body language, Punk looks like he's ready for a fight. Punk looks like he's ready for that. Something might happen. Perry does not. And again, when the physical contact comes, he's like backing off and fixing his hair.
Right.
It's not like you don't see him ball up his fist and get in Punk's face. Nothing. So it's crazy, but Punk looks like the complete asshole that we think he is, but he's going to come at us looking better than before. This is a big own goal by AEW. And they were risking this by to begin with, which is why I thought, oh, they must have the goods. They can't be so stupid as to air footage that's not going to have some kind of smoking gun attached to it. And they aired footage that had absolutely no smoking gun attached to it. I don't know why they think this is going to make Punk look bad. I don't know why they think this was going to, I don't even understand from the standpoint of how this pushes any kind of angle along, because yeah, it makes Perry justified in calling himself a scapegoat.
Right. Right. Now the heel is Tony Khan's the
guy
heel
didn't
now.
do anything.
Yeah, he didn't do anything, and he got suspended for 6 months and presumably still suspended now, going on, close to a year, whatever. So it's like,
because someone attacked him.
right. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, this whole thing is a mess. I thought something interesting would come out of it at minimum, and nothing interesting has come out of it. And now it just looks like Perry should be a babyface,
right,
calling himself the scapegoat.
Yeah,
is what it looks like.
He's the babyface, and Tony Khan, the owner of AEW, kayfabe, is the heel.
Yeah. And Punk is still an asshole, but we already knew that.
Great. So
like, that's nothing new. Like, we all knew that.
Right.
Like, we know Punk is out of control lunatic. Like, that's nothing fresh or new. Who would fight somebody over practically nothing? So, but it didn't matter, like it doesn't matter. Like, Punk is going to come, which is probably why he no-sold it at WrestleMania, because he was there and he knew this was nothing. He knew this was nothing that wasn't already known or had been described.
Right.
He knew there was no smoking gun.
Right. If he knew that there was something really egregious that he had done.
Out ahead of it.
Right.
There was nothing to get out ahead of.
No.
He essentially told the story as is and with minor embellishments. Oh, Perry got in my face. Well, that didn't happen. It's not going to matter, though. Like, it wasn't, it's not like Perry was walking away and he ran after him and attacked. Like, but he didn't get in his face. He didn't have this army of friends supporting him like he claimed.
Yeah, the army of friends. It's Samoa Joe with his back turned, warming up, and that's it.
There was no one. There was no one there. Malachi Black comes moseying on in at the very end, and he doesn't look very what's the word I'm looking for? He doesn't look very he's very casual.
Yeah, there's no tension. Strong. He's just kind of walking up like, hey, what's going on here? What happened here? What happened?
The impression he wasn't even there. Like, he was, you know what I mean? He wasn't even there. He just came in at the end of it, like, and saw, or someone, heard the commotion and came wandering over, because he's not, there's no suddenness, or he's not someone who's ready. It doesn't look like someone who was ready to, like, back up his friend. It's, I don't know. But this is, the bottom line is, this is over analysis, because this was nothing. This was, it's,
I would like to say, because there's been people in the chat room that are like, oh, now we can finally move on from this. This is not going to make it move on.
We're never moving on.
This only re-engages it.
Have we even moved on from Montreal? We don't move on from things in wrestling. I think maybe now we finally moved on from Montreal.
Yeah, because of the All In. Because of All Out and because of All In, we moved on from Montreal. It took
25 years?
25 years, yeah.
20 years?
No, even longer. 1997. Yeah, even longer. I mean, because it really just started, like, I would say 3 years ago, where people stopped asking Dave, on Twitter every single week, about the Montreal Screwjob. Yeah, we definitely went 20 plus years of either recreating Montreal Screwjobs in various companies or everybody being asked about it and everybody having a take on it and a discussion about it or whatever. Yeah, we finally moved on from that because of All Out. I think because of All Out and because of this fight now too.
Yeah, there will be no moving on from any of this for decades. I don't know who that upsets, but none of this will stop being discussed and relitigated for decades. I don't know. I don't even have anything else to say. I mean, okay, so now the Bucks and FTR at whatever this event is called, Dynasty, is being built around the idea of FTR's friends with CM Punk, and the Bucks are blaming CM Punk for the loss last time.
Mm-hmm.
But the Bucks are heels, and
Yes.
Punk is supposed to be like the heel in this. It just, I don't know.
Yeah, FTR are the good guys.
FTR are the baby faces
that are rallying
Punk,
the crowd to inspire them to love AEW because AEW is great. The Bucks, who started AEW, are the heels, but it's bad because they're the bosses. And they love this. And Punk is also evil and the heel, but he's with the baby faces who are rallying the company. I think.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, what a mess. What a miss and what a mess.
Okay.
I mean, what a mess.
Oh, boy.
You would...
It's better popping a quarter. Even if it does, I mean, okay, great.
Well, yeah. Well, okay. If it pops a quarter, then Punk's just gonna brag because he popped a quarter.
Right, yeah. Everyone's gonna say, the real star of your company is not even in your company anymore.
Right. So you can't win from that standpoint either. So I'm just watching it one more time. Yeah, yeah. Malachi Black just comes strolling in with a coffee.
Hook, if you notice as well, Hook moseys on in. I think when it's right, I think him and Malachi Black come in around the same time. You can see Hook towards the left near the Samoa Joe.
Nah. Hook is obstructed by that giant light. He's in the frame the whole time.
Oh, is he there? Okay. He's just kind of hanging out. He doesn't care.
There's that giant light because they had just come in from their match, and he's standing. Taz is there in the very beginning, walking away from Hook, and Hook is like obscured behind the giant light. And then he kind of, when the fight starts, he backs off and goes towards Joe in the corner. So, yeah, I mean, then there's some people just wandering around who they got their faces blurred, probably Wembley officials and things like that.
Yeah.
Who's that wrestler in the purple and yellow robe walking back and forth?
Let's see. Hold on a sec. Let's Zapruder film this thing. See if I can figure out who that is.
There's two people with their faces blurred.
Okay, yeah. So I see Taz. I see Joe. I see what you're saying. Yeah, Hook's just kind of hanging there. I see his trunks there.
You see him now? Yeah. He was obscured by the light.
The two blurred out faces, yeah. Just
that look like Tony Storm and Christian, but we know that they're not. But that's who it looks like.
Oh, it does. Yeah, it does kind of look like Tony Storm.
It looks like Tony Storm hanging out with Christian, and they're like, we don't want nothing to do with this. Blur our faces out of this fucking garbage. And then see that wrestler walking back and forth.
That might be Tony. Are you sure that's not Tony Storm?
It might be.
It might be.
It might be Tony Storm and Christian.
I don't know if it's Christian. It doesn't look like strong enough to be Christian.
It's not Juice.
No, I don't know who that is.
The other natural.
Yeah.
That means it's probably not Tony Storm.
It's probably not Tony Storm. Yeah.
Goofballs. Same haircut though, and like.
Oh yeah, who is that guy in the robe? Who is that?
The robe. Who's that guy?
It looks
yellow
like
and purple
Robert
robe?
Gibson, right? It's like
it looks like Dalton Castle, but he wasn't on the show.
Right. Who is that? I don't know.
One of the Freakazoids will know.
Yeah, who is that guy?
Yeah, it's a purple and yellow robe.
Who was on?
Yeah, pull that fucking card up.
Yeah, I got to see who was in their gear. Who was ready to go?
We're being told there's CM Punk chants on the show. Nice job,
great.
Tone.
Nice job, buddy. Great.
Tony.
Great. Exactly what you're going for here.
Talk about backfiring. You talk about backfiring.
Oh my God. Yeah. I don't know who this could be. It's not Fletcher and Davis. It's obviously not. I don't think it's Cole or MJF. There's no way.
No, it's not MJF because the hair is no good.
No.
Cole? Cole didn't have like a robe on.
No, that hair just looks pretty stringy too. I don't know. I'm not sure. And then later in the night, it's Jay White, Juice Robinson, Takeshita, Paige, Omega, Ibushi. It's none of those guys. I don't know who that is.
I can't work it out.
I can't work it out either. Yeah. Well. Yeah. Well, I don't know. What else do we do?
I mean, it's an MJF-esque robe, but that hair doesn't match at all.
It's real stringy hair. It's low. It's not MJF.
Like shoulder length.
Yeah. That's what I said.
Hair.
It's like moppy thin hair. It was Robert Gibson, I think. So
where are you getting Robert Gibson out of that?
I don't know.
It's nothing like Robert Gibson. All right, hold on. Let me see. Robert Gibson.
But look, it's like a mullet. It's like a thin mullet. Robert Gibson has had that thin mullet going on for like 20 years now.
Now the guy turns around, or girl turns around and walks back into frame at the tail end, and we get a front view. I have no fucking clue who that is. Yeah, we're being told MJF did have a purple robe that night. Were there some extras involved in entrances or something? Wearing wacky outfits? Yeah, I give up on the purple robe guy.
All right.
And we're probably going to have to move on at some point. So
yeah, let's do it. Let's move on. So, so that's that. We'll talk about the fallout, I'm sure, over the next weeks, months, years. But there you go. A swing.
Well, the fallout is the crowd
miss.
is now chanting CM Punk. That's the fallout.
Right. Oh boy. All right. Do you want to talk about Akebono, or do you want to go into the WrestleMania stuff? Because so on the show, what we're going to do, obviously we had a very strange beginning here because we're reacting to the All-In footage being aired on Dynamite, but we are going to talk about the fallout from WrestleMania weekend, the branding of the Triple H era, Cody Rhodes now as the company's top star, Raw's massive ratings from this week. We'll discuss all of that. I'll review the CMLL show from this last Friday, highlighted by Blue Panther versus Bryan Danielson. Review New Japan Sakura Genesis. Preview Windy City Riot, and anything else that comes up along the way as well. But where do you want to start? Do you want to start with the Akebono thing, or you think we're ready?
Let's talk about Akebono. So obviously, well, maybe not obviously, maybe people don't know this, but he was actually an American. So who went to Japan and became a huge sumo star.
Yeah, he's Hawaiian.
Hawaiian. His name is Chad Rowan, right? Chad Rowan,
yeah.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Chad Rowan.
Akebono. So, and then he got into pro wrestling. Obviously, he had the match at WrestleMania against Big Show, which, oddly enough, I just watched that match because it was the match that followed the Kurt Angle versus Shawn Michaels match from WrestleMania, which I watched for the Kurt Angle project that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So as I'm writing up my review, I just let the feed keep going, and the next match was that abysmal sumo match between Akebono and Big Show from that WrestleMania in Los Angeles, where they take the ropes down, Bloodsport before Bloodsport, Rich, and then they have Akebono versus Big Show in a sumo match, and Akebono wins, which, at the time I'm like, well, why even do this if Big Show's not going to win, right? Like, but I guess maybe they couldn't talk Akebono into doing a job. I don't know what the deal was, but then he endorses Big Show in the post match, but the whole thing stinks and the segment is flat and it just didn't work. And
nobody knew who he was. Nobody in, what was it, Los Angeles? I think that Mania was in.
Yeah, Los Angeles.
Yeah, nobody knew who Akebono was. nobody cared. It was just
No,
like
he
a
wasn't
random
over like that.
sumo dude. They could have just grabbed any random pseudo. Like we all know because we know who Akebono is, and at that time I think a lot of people did. But your normal basic WWE fan that's just there for WrestleMania 21 has no idea why Big Show's just facing a random sumo guy. It felt like to most people they just grabbed a random sumo guy off the street and threw him in here, and then had a very bad thing, whatever it was, with Big Show, and then beat him as well, which made it even more odd and strange and seemingly unnecessary, but very strange way for him to make his first appearance to a large scale American audience there at WrestleMania 21.
Yeah. And then a bunch of Japanese promotions gave him a try. I mean, he was in New Japan for a while. If you remember, he was still a part-timer with New Japan right around the time that they started to blow up in 2011, 2012. He would work some of the bigger shows. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, let me see if I could find this. I think he was on, they used to bring him in for the Wrestle Kingdoms during that time, because there was always this idea. Yeah. Okay. Here we go. Wrestle Kingdom 7. It was, and that is 2013. That was Tanahashi Okada. That was, the opening match after the dark matches was Muscle Orchestra, Akebono, and MVP over Takashi Iizuka, Toru Yano, Yujiro, and Bob Sapp. That was the opener for which feels like 1,000 years ago. Just looking at the people in that match.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But yeah, and that was the Wrestle Kingdom with Tanahashi over Okada and the Nakamura Kazushi Sakuraba match in the semi-main. So just as they were starting to get cooking, that was 2013, exactly 1 year after Okada returned and beat Yoshihashi. So yeah, they would bring him in on some of the bigger shows because the idea was that, as the sumo star, he was a draw. But then he really settled in with All Japan. And that's what I kind of mentioned earlier. And I think that Akebono, if you remember, I don't know if the shows from that era are still around, but we used to talk a lot about how he was very instrumental in the rise of Kento Miyahara.
Yeah.
Because he would have these matches with Miyahara when Miyahara wasn't a guy yet, but it was clear that All Japan wanted him to be the guy.
Right, like this 2014, 2015 era when he was very much like we all know. I think most people that have now watched, maybe if you're new to the game, you just think Kento Miyahara was just like always this way. But yeah, of course, it took a little while for him to get there, especially coming over from Noah to All Japan. But yeah, it was around this 2014, 15-ish time when it was clear that they wanted him to be the guy that's going to lead them into whatever that new generation of All Japan was going to be. And him getting those scalps against Akebono was a big deal. And they had some pretty damn good matches from what I remember.
Yeah, that was like, Akebono during that period was pretty effective. I mean, he was a pretty lousy pro wrestler overall, but he had that little period there in All Japan when he was, winning the Triple Crown. I don't know how many times he won it, but during that period, he was definitely Triple Crown champion at least once. But
twice. He was twice.
Okay. And he would work like a giant bear. He would just be like this. That's the best way I could describe it. Like this giant bear that you would have to somehow overcome, and he wasn't so completely physically depleted yet where he could still have a fun and the Miyahara matches where the idea was Miyahara just could never beat him, and then Miyahara eventually finally gets a big win. I don't think he beat him for the title. I think he beat him in a carnival. I don't think he ever beat Akebono for the Triple Crown, but he beat him in a carnival after losing to him a bunch of times. And, that was a really big deal. And I remember talking about that match here and that it really was, those Akebono matches really were a key and instrumental in helping get Kento Miyahara over as the ace of the company. So, to me, that's his biggest legacy in worked pro wrestling was that 2013 to 2015 All Japan period where he was in the Triple Crown mix, and he was a pretty significant star for them to have during that time. From just a, given the, outside the wrestling bubble, people would have known who he was in Japan. And it's like they would not draw on huge houses or anything, and then he kind of then he left All Japan and just bounced around Japan a lot, but then he just got woefully out of shape, and he's been in poor health for a number of years.
Yeah.
So, he is a 54-year-old man who weighed probably, close to 500 pounds at various points of his life. So, the odds are not great for a long life when you're that large. He was probably a legit 6'7", 6'8" too.
Oh, he's a huge guy. I think I'm reading his bio right now, and it says here, and I have no reason why they would lie about this, that he was one of the tallest and one of the heaviest sumo wrestlers ever. And yeah, he was legit 6'8", I think. If
not a pro wrestling 6'8".
Yeah.
A real 6'8".
A real 6'8". I was gonna say at worst he was 6'7", but it was like he felt all like that, because when, like you said, when he got in the ring with these guys, even a guy like Kento Miyahara, who's a pretty big dude, pretty well, it looked like you said, like he was fighting a bear, like he was literally fighting this gigantic bear, and then he would work that way. He would just claw at guys and throw them down and do all that sort of stuff, and just have this power game that was definitely a lot of fun to watch in real time. It wasn't like it didn't always land. There was a lot of Akebono matches that just don't land, and they're kind of boring, and you watch them and you're like, but the ones that do land, the ones where he has the right opponent in there, particularly those Kento Miyahara matches, few with Go Shiozaki at that time too. That's really the era that I look at. I mean, I don't know that any of those like New Japan matches really landed for me. I know he was there from like 2005 to I don't know what he did there. I'm sure he faced like Tenzan and those sort of guys or whatever. But I think I've seen those, but I don't even know if I mean that era of New Japan. I really don't like that era at all. But that All Japan era that we're talking about, this 2012, 13, 14, 15, that region right there. He was damn good and a lot of fun with the right opponents.
Yeah, he was good. Yeah, he was someone that we enjoyed watching and reviewing for sure. And the other promotions would always bring him in as an attraction. Dragon Gate would give it a trial, and probably a number of times. And he probably worked, all told, a couple of matches for all of the major promotions that existed during his career in Japan, because this was a guy who was a legit star in the culture. And, those kind of people are always going to get chances in pro wrestling, plus with his unique size and everything. So, a 6'8", 480-pound human, that's the largest human most people will ever lay their eyes on in real life in their life. I mean, I think we're kind of desensitized to size sometimes. If you're a sports fan, if you watch the NBA, 6'8" humans is not normal. That's extremely fucking tall.
You have to stand next to one, I think, is what you have to do. I think a lot of people
to understand the scale.
Just not that long ago, we went to a card show. I went to a card show with the nurse and a couple of my buddies, and one of my buddies got a photo op with Tony Kukoc, the Croatian sensation, Tony Kukoc. You know him. If you don't, people can look him up if they want. Probably 6'7", 6'8", I would say. He's probably down a little bit in his older age now that I think he's in his 50s or whatever. So, we walk up to him, and it's just like, you don't comprehend how big. Like, you watch Tony Kukoc during an NBA game, and you're not like, oh my God, look at the size of that guy. Like, you do that with like Victor Wembanyama or whatever, or Boban.
Yeah.
Those guys are like clear, but they're freaks among the freaks. Tony Kukoc is just like a normal, NBA sized guy or whatever, and you stand next to him, real humans stand next to him, and it's ridiculous. The nurse is up to his hip. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, the nurse is like, and he's bending down to take the photo with us because he can't stand all the way up, because if he stood all the way up, the curtain that they built behind him, he'd be taller than it. It's just like, you don't really realize what that height is until you see that. I always tell people, like, for basketball, like some point guards, like a Chris Paul or a Derrick Rose, or these kind of are like 6'2", 6'3", or whatever. If a 6'3" guy walked into any basketball game anywhere that you're playing with your buddies, like, he'd be the tallest guy that you'd play with, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe
sure.
You got a 6'4" guy that you play with occasionally, but that guy's huge. You're like, oh my God, he's big. You get down low. You're a big man or whatever. But then in the NBA, you're just a point guard. It's like, people don't really comprehend what that is. This guy was 6'8". Akebono, 6'8", and easily 500 pounds, 500 to 600 pounds at his peak.
Yeah.
Big boy.
Right. Yeah, you got a 6'4" guy at a pickup basketball game. If he's any good, it's not even fun.
Right.
That's the guy. You know what I mean? Like, if he's good, that's not even fun.
Right.
Like,
we actually had that a couple of days ago. Some guy showed up and he just wanted to shoot around or whatever. We need an extra guy. So he's like, fine. It wasn't. I mean, he'd miss his shot and then get his rebound every single time. If he missed a shot, he got his own rebound. Because it's like, I can't box this guy out. What am I going to do? He just moves his arms above my head and puts the ball back. And he's like, all right, this is boring.
If you're 6'4" and you played organized at a high school level or higher, you have to go like 80% against people like us.
Right.
It's just not fun. But an absurdly large human and, probably a better pro wrestler than people think for a few years there, which, now looking at his age, that would have put him in his mid 40s during that period, which, pretty impressive that he was still that mobile.
Yeah, after a lengthy athletic career, like a real athletic career, because like sumo is not easy.
Sumo careers are rough.
Yes.
So, to be 43, 44 years old and, be competent athletically, now listen, he wasn't flying around like Ricochet, but he was competent athletically during that period in All Japan for the style of matches that he was working. It's not like you were watching him thinking, this is really hard to watch because this guy can barely move. It wasn't like that. I mean, and the only way I could describe it is like he would paw at his opponents like a bear. He would just come at him, kind of with that sumo style and back him in the corner. And yeah, he, and very instrumental in helping get Kento Miyahara over. That I will always remember. So, Akebono, probably best known for the Big Show match. Not probably, definitely best known in pro wrestling for the Akebono match, for the Big Show match, without question. But then a mainstay in Japan for the next decade after that. And, one of the greatest sumos of all time, from what I understand, and isn't he easily the greatest American sumo, the non-Japanese, or at least American sumo of all time?
I don't know enough about sumo to say, but I would assume,
or was considered at least at the time that he.
Yeah, I would have to assume, and some people in the chat room are letting us know about and it probably should mention that too, because this guy got involved in wrestling a little bit as well. He did K1. Akebono did K1, and he had a match in 2003 against Bob Sapp, which had 45,000 people in the Nagoya Dome and had a 43% viewership on the 43% viewership for a New Year's Eve K1 show.
And that's exactly why he was always going to get pro wrestling opportunities and brought in as a special attraction. That's exactly why. So, and that was right at the time when Japanese MMA was loaded with those kinds of, quote unquote freak show fights. He did have, sumo obviously is a combat sport to some degree, but, it's like these days you don't get much of that anymore when you get, those kinds of fights put together. But that was right smack in the period where they were happening all the time, and that stuff was still drawing big. So obviously from that, as long as he was willing to do it in Japan, he was going to get booked for pro wrestling companies. I mean, he just was, hoping to catch lightning in a bottle. But the further you move away from your peak fame, the more the diminishing returns start to settle in on when it comes to that kind of stuff. So, two-time former Triple Crown champion, trying to pull up. He lost it for the last time. He lost the title to Jun Akiyama. I want to see if
I think at one point he had Royal. Go ahead. Yeah,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I thought one of the ones he had to relinquish because of his health. I don't know if he lost. I know one of them he lost to, I think, Akiyama, if you're right, but I want to say that one of them. I want to say one of them he just relinquished, because it may have been the first one he relinquished, and the second one he lost to Akiyama.
Well, let's just pull this up and look for sure. But I'm just looking at some of his title defenses. Go Shiozaki and Korakuen Hall, 911 fans. So it's not like he was some kind of monster draw. All Japan was not doing
that's door era for All Japan. Yeah, if for people that weren't around at that time, that was like real. This company probably isn't going to survive, right? It's a kind of territory for a while there.
Well, yeah, it was before. Yeah, it was after Jun Akiyama bought it and restarted it, and it was before, obviously, he then left. But Akebono, yeah, okay. I was wondering if it was a carnival match or a Royal Road match where Miyahara finally beat him, and it was a carnival match in Korakuen Hall. So that was a big spot. And then, they booked it for Korakuen Hall, for obvious reasons when Miyahara finally beat Akebono. So, trying to go back and find some of his Triple Crown matches and see kind of like the biggest buildings that they ran with him on top.
I do have a fun version of his matches in the United States. He's got 4 matches in the United States, and they're pretty fun. So whenever you're ready, we can.
Here's a Triple Crown match versus Miyahara and Korakuen that drew 1153. That, I think, looks like one of his bigger Korakuen numbers. I mean, geez, a match against Takeo Omori, Korakuen, Joe Doring during that period. They weren't doing great business, but that was a fun period for All Japan. I enjoyed that period. He beat Suwama for the title the first time in Sumo Hall in front of 2563. I mean,
that was a fun era of just like sweaty big dudes just clubbing at each other. You know what I mean? Like there was more
of that. I mean, you had Akebono, Suwama, Joe Doring, Go Shiozaki was around at that time. That was a fun period for All Japan. It really was. And, not a lot of people were paying attention to it or covering it. We were. Oh, man. Remember when Dark Cuervo and Dark Oz were regulars from AAA? Holy shit.
It got weird.
That got memory erased. That I completely forgot that was a fucking thing. Like here you go. Like the Royal Road final in 2013 where Akebono beat Go Shiozaki. 607 fans in Aichi. I mean,
oof.
This is bad. It's ugly times. Ugly times. So that, this is interesting as we look at Kento Miyahara on the Hall of Fame ballot for the first time this year. And, that's kind of what this is the era you have to compare his drawing record to, because this is what he was following. They elevated Kento Miyahara, and he did take the company to another level from where they were previously during this era that we're talking about now. So I know that's a conversation for another day, but that's and then you have to decide, well, is that Hall of Fame worthy?
Right.
To take a company from death's door to, okay, we're doggy paddling and staying afloat, which is essentially, what then his reign as the ace did.
Right. It's always my argument. And I've never quite been able to kind of figure it out for myself or have anybody really is, are we only giving credit to people that are drawing 10,000 seat arenas and all this sort of stuff? Or are we giving credit to a guy who comes into a company, again, Kento Miyahara, a perfect example, comes into a company that's drawing 600 for a tournament final. And then, a couple years later when he's on top, they're drawing in the 4 digits easily. What is that worth much? Or does it not count because it's not, 10,000 people. It's not 7,000 people. It's not 8,000, 9,000, 10,000 people. It's only, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. And is that not worth enough? But I would say if we can so clearly see what the company was before and then what it is after, I think that's worthy of at least a discussion. But I do understand that some people see it as, well, yeah, that's good and that's nice that he did that, but we're talking Hall of Fame. We got to talk high end, top tier, drawing big money, because it should be a select group and not just like a guy who would go into All Japan or let's say an indie in America and draw 500 extra people to an indie. Yeah, that's really nice and good, but like, is getting 1,000 people to an indie really worth all that much compared to people that are putting 10,000, 20,000 people in buildings?
Well, I'm one of those people who doesn't see that as Hall of Fame drawing, but the Hall of Fame is more than drawing.
Right.
It's about work and then the historical significance. And I guess we're giving away our Kento Miyahara Hall of Fame arguments, but his work to me is Hall of Fame level work. Kento Miyahara is a Hall of Fame level pro wrestler, bell to bell. That I'm sure of. Okay. The drawing, no, but is it, if you're a great worker at a Hall of Fame level, and you also help the promotion not die, even if you didn't draw at a Hall of Fame level, you certainly lifted them to the point where they then were able to not die when people thought they were going to die. doesn't that count a little towards your case, even if you don't check the drawing box? And that's kind of where the debates come in, you know, and that's kind of like what you're saying to some degree. Mike Gilbert in the chat is saying he got into an altercation with Akebono at Yokota Air Base around 2006 or 2007. God. Well, he has to tell that story on Mike and JD later, which, by the way, always follows the Flagship live.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so if you guys are not, well, tomorrow, I guess it would be because today's Wednesday. But normally they follow us live on Thursdays if some of you guys can't get enough wrestling talk or want another perspective, or they're doing topics we're not doing. They come on generally right after us. They usually start right when we're ending. But
on the Voice of Wrestling YouTube channel, by the way, if you want. So you don't even have to go that far.
That's right.
You stay right on the Voice of Wrestling YouTube channel. But yeah, Mike,
on the YouTube channel.
Don't say a thing in this chat room. Don't tell anybody. Don't is your
tell
scoop.
The story, Mike.
That is your scoop for tomorrow. Is listen to the Mike and JD show for Mike getting in an altercation with Akebono at an airbase in 2006, 2007, somewhere in that range. I cannot imagine that went well for Mike, but we're gonna find out tomorrow on the Mike and JD show.
We could be following a theme. Maybe it was a big old nothing like the Punk tape, and he'll tie that into their audio tomorrow when it turns out that the altercation was nothing more than a hearty handshake.
Yeah,
but,
or Mike put him in a guillotine and then somebody broke it up. So
yeah. So someone else asking in the chat, Andres Chio. I don't know if I'm saying your last name right, but didn't All Japan technically go bankrupt and close as a company, and basically all the assets, contracts, etc., were bought by the current All Japan? Yes, I briefly mentioned that, but Jun Akiyama technically restarted the company and purchased all of the trademarks, assets. All Japan did die.
Yes.
Technically. Okay. Jun Akiyama purchased it and kept everything alive, but in the technical sense, in a court of law, it's a second company with all the same names and trademarks because he purchased all of the assets. In wrestling continuity, the company never died, quote unquote, and it just continued on under Jun Akiyama's ownership, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it has a different corporate name.
That or...
No, absolutely. Yeah, it if you want some more, it happened in 2014, I think June of 2014, that sort of era. And yeah, essentially, I think it went under a corporate name change is the way that you can because like it was still called All Japan Pro Wrestling. Like, to us on the outside world, to people that are just watching All Japan Pro Wrestling, it was All Japan Pro Wrestling with the same logo and the same everything. But like corporate wise, it changed. I think their headquarters changed, and it was technically a brand new company that ran All Japan Pro Wrestling. It was like they bought the assets of All Japan Pro Wrestling, but then created a company above All Japan Pro Wrestling that was running All Japan Pro Wrestling. That probably doesn't explain it any better than you just did, but yes, it's a new company. Basically, the company died. Jun Akiyama created a new company to manage the asset that he purchased, which was All Japan Pro Wrestling. So yes, It went away.
And all the trademarks and title belts and everything.
Yeah. So 2014 to today is a new company. From what?
Yeah.
1972 to 2014. Right. That was a different company.
Correct. Yep. And that's different than just buying a company. No, this company died and then he bought whatever remained from the company that died. So anyway, the point is, technically, yes, it did die at one point, but anything else on Akebono before we move on? Because we have
I have all of his matches that he did in the United States of America. You ready for this? Four times you had the opportunity to watch Akebono in the United States of America. If you were at the Reliant Arena in Houston, Texas for WWE SmackDown episode 294, Akebono defeated Eddie Vegas in a little bit of a tune-up match for the WrestleMania 21. I did not know that. I thought he just showed up, rolled into WrestleMania and did that. No, he had a tune-up match on SmackDown number 298.
Probably a tryout. Effectively, it was probably a tryout.
Yeah. Then a couple days later, he's at WrestleMania 21. We talked about that, the sumo match, defeating the Big Show in 3 minutes. Then 5 years later, Akebono returns to the United States of America for Dragon Gate USA Code of the Warrior at the Police Athletic League Hall in Fall River, Massachusetts. October 29, 2010, Akebono and Brody Lee defeat Amasis and Ophidian.
He got 500 pounds on a plane for that? Now, was he working with Dragon Gate proper around that time?
Don't know for sure. I know he was doing stuff with Dragon Gate around that time. I don't know if exactly at that time. What is it? What did I just say? 2010? Let me see about 2010 if he was no, actually he wasn't. So he did a Dragon Gate shot a little bit. He did Kobe Festival in July. Other than that, he's really mostly 2010. He's 0-1 All Japan, a little bit of New Japan, and like 1 or 2 shots in Dragon Gate, but not a regular in Dragon Gate. So he goes from defending, this is wild. So in October 24, 2010, he defends, him and Taiyo Kiya defend the All Japan World Tag Team titles against Big Daddy Voodoo and Charlie Haas, the Voodoo Murderers. And then hops on a plane to go face Amasis and Ophidian, and then comes back the next day at the Rahway Rec Center in beautiful Rahway, New Jersey, where he fights his previous tag team partner, Brody Lee, and loses to Brody Lee. And then he gets on a plane, flies back to Japan, and never returns to America ever again.
Yeah, 09 and 010 is when he was basically a part-timer with Dragon Gate in Japan. So that's probably the connection there. And then he did some one-offs with Dragon Gate at some other times too. Like, remember Dragon Gate brought in Abdullah the Butcher at one point? Didn't they bring in Abdullah the Butcher?
I believe that's the case. Yeah.
2 at one point.
Yeah. So Akebono, he did a lot in like 2009. We're talking 2010 here, and it was like 1 or 2 shots for Dragon Gate in 2010. But yeah, he was doing regular stuff with Dragon Gate before that. But
during that period, yeah,
it does feel like the Dragon Gate USC booking is a little random given what else he was doing at the time. It's not like he was a regular in Dragon Gate, and then they were like, "Hey, we have this Dragon Gate USA thing," and he was like, "Oh, okay, cool." You know, someone made a call. I don't know. Gabe called someone.
He had kind of wrapped up with Dragon Gate by that point.
Yeah. Right.
But I don't know if he filled the Police Athletic League and wherever the fuck that was. But
Fall River, Massachusetts. Yeah. Do they have they don't have attendances for? Oh, they do. I don't know if these are accurate. 752 at the Police Athletic League Hall, and
pretty strong attendance.
It's not bad. And then Freedom Fight 2010 at the Rahway Rec Center in Rahway, New Jersey. The next night, 792 for.
Yeah, those are strong attendances.
Masato Yoshino versus Yamato. Yeah, people dog on DGUSA, but they got some pretty good crowds during the early days. Now, were they making money given how expensive it was to fly the Dragon Gate roster back and forth? Probably not, but hey, they had some good attendances. And hey, those tickets, let me tell you, as somebody who bought a lot of those Dragon Gate USA tickets, expensive little tickets, I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, at first it was
pushed card
as a
stock
premium product.
Yeah, you got a premium product with card stock tickets, and you got like a lanyard and like a little, hologram program or whatever. It was a premium product. You paid premium prices for a premium product, is what Gabe told me. And it was. I loved Dragon Gate USA. But yeah, they had decent numbers. Decent numbers at that time.
Yeah, first that was the idea. It was pushed as this is a premium pro wrestling product. The tickets were very expensive. Because again, you got to pay for those flights. The cards at first too were like 5 and 6 match cards. They weren't, they didn't go like 10 deep, and obviously because again, you're paying all those flights, and this talent wasn't cheap. But then as time moved along, it slowly, devolved into just, being indie shows, and then less and less Dragon Gate talent was coming over. And yeah, it was obviously because of the cost, and also probably because the Dragon Gate office saw that, okay, this isn't taking off the way we thought it would. Maybe we're kind of spinning our wheels with it, and then you got to talk people into flying it over on that long ass flight to work 2 or 3 shows in front of 500, 600, 700 people, and then it just became
because early DGUSA
name only.
That whole roster would come over. I mean, most of that roster would come over, and then little by little it was like
a big chunk of the known roster.
Yeah, and then it was like 5 guys, then it was 4 guys, then you looked around and there was like 1 or 2 guys, and you're like, okay, we're done.
The undercard people,
we're done now. Yeah,
you'd get one, and it'd be Yusuke Santa Maria or something, and you'd be like, well, what the fuck? This is just a token person being sent over who isn't being pushed, who they could afford to lose for a week, who no one gives a shit about in America. And then it just became no one. Then eventually it was none. Then it was just And then Evolve started, and then they just became like Evolve and Dragon Gate USA shows. Once Evolve dropped all their gimmicks, the no entrance music or just the steady drum beat entrance music for everybody, or the and then the standings and everything, because people complained about rankings and records. Well, Evolve did it 10 years before AEW did. So but again, that went away, and then when Evolve dropped all those gimmicks, Evolve shows and Dragon Gate USA shows became indistinguishable. It was just Gabe Red and Gabe Blue, like SmackDown Red and Raw Red, and it's like same thing. It was just like two different brands under the same booker, with a different logo on the fucking turnbuckle pad, and then eventually, I guess that one WrestleMania weekend, then he just merged it all together and started calling everything Evolve, and Dragon Gate USA went away. But that was kind of the life cycle. And 2010, when Akebono came in, would have been very early when it was still being marketed as kind of this premium product, which kind of adds up why they would give him a shot, since he was Dragon Gate adjacent then, and that he definitely was a special attraction. So doing a little program with Brody Lee, you talk about shoot 6'8". I mean, Brody Lee was, at times, we were told he was 7 foot tall, which was preposterous. And at times, he was booked at like 6'7", and no, it's like, that's pro wrestling. But Akebono was a legitimate 6'8", like a real world, honest, non-pro wrestling worked 6'7".
Well, while we're doing plugs for podcasts on the network, all the DGUSA shows, I believe the Open the Voice Gate guys during COVID recapped and reviewed all the DGUSA shows. So if you ever want to go back and learn more about DGUSA, including these Akebono matches we just talked about, I'm sure you can go find those in the archive. Open the Voice Gate on the Voice of Wrestling Podcast Network. So there we go. Akebono passing away. Do we have an exact? I know he had some heart condition. Do we have a cause of death, or just passed away?
No, all I have is that Dave tweet. I don't have anything else.
Yeah. So 54 years old for Akebono. So there you go. Yeah, let's get into some of the other stuff of this week, because a very, very busy week in the world of wrestling. Obviously, we just talked about the All In, footage airing on Dynamite. We're coming up on Dynasty here in a little bit. We are going to do an instant reaction live for AEW Dynasty, by the way. So if you are on the $10 tier of flagshippatreon.com because of all of our WrestleMania weekend coverage, don't get rid of it just yet, because you get Dynasty coming up. You're listening. Hey, you get live flagships like this where we break in and talk about the all-in footage, but you also get AEW Dynasty instant reaction live coming up in a couple of weeks here. So the 21st. I believe, for the date of that. But let's get into some of the other stuff. Obviously, speaking of WrestleMania and the many shows that we did covering WrestleMania weekend, let's talk a little bit about the fallout from WrestleMania weekend, particularly in the world of WWE, as we have now very clearly, now that we've seen the weekend come by, we saw Raw happen. We're going to talk about the ratings that Raw got in a little bit. But one thing has been very, very clear, more so than crowning Cody Rhodes as the new WWE champion and figuring out what's next for Roman and what's next for this guy. That the clearest thing to me from the result of everything that happened that weekend was WWE's intention on establishing this era as the Triple H era. We had Michael Cole scream about it on WrestleMania. We had Triple H come out and be the first guy to come out on WrestleMania Night 1. We had Stephanie McMahon, who by the way, as of right now, has no official capacity in WWE just yet. I know we were talking about that on our Sunday Instant Reaction Live show. Apparently she's got nothing right now, so we'll see if that changes in the weeks and months that follow, but right now, nothing official for her. But she comes out on night 2, also declares it the Triple H era. Cody Rhodes wins the title. He says, this is the Triple H era, calls Triple H out to give him a big hug and give him a whole big spotlight. Then Raw happens. The first guy that comes out on Raw, not the new WWE champion Cody Rhodes. No, it is Triple H who comes out and once again talks about the Triple H era. So to me, it was very, very clear after the 2 nights of WrestleMania and the night of Raw that, yeah, Cody Rhodes, that win is big, and that him becoming the top guy is big. We're going to talk about that in a sec, but what's bigger than any of that is clearly WWE wanting to establish this thing as this Triple H era, and also them re-embracing the term pro wrestling. We heard at the end of WrestleMania on Sunday where Michael Cole said, I love pro wrestling, or Pat McAfee said pro wrestling is the best, or I don't know what it was, but they're clearly back in on the wrestling thing, saying pro wrestling, embracing pro wrestling, and very clearly branding whatever this new thing is, whatever this era is going to be, the Triple H era. So, Joe, what do you think of the Triple H era? We talked a little bit about it this weekend, but now we've really seen it hammered home, I thought, on Raw.
I mean, you could argue that he was pushed bigger than Cody this weekend. I mean, and look, there's a couple different reasons for it. Number one is they're absolutely trying to make people forget about Vince McMahon, and they're trying to distance themselves as far as possible from Vince McMahon, from the aspect of, look, everyone's always going to associate the WWE with Vince McMahon, but they want to make it clear that he has nothing to do with the current version of the company and that he's never going to be back. And I think part of that is just over stressing the idea that this is now Paul Levesque's company. So that's number one. Number two is he's a massive egomaniac. I mean, let's be honest. That's part of this too.
Him coming out on Raw first and foremost was egregious. I could not believe they did that.
Yeah, I mean, look, you could argue that him coming out at all on any of these shows is egregious. Now, they are trying to pound home this idea that Vince is gone. I understand. But how much Triple H can we take? I mean, you know, you want to come out WrestleMania night one. Okay, this is your first WrestleMania that you're booking on your own, where you're in full control of the company, even though Rock is booking the entire main event scene. But we'll set that aside for now. Assistant Booker Paul when it comes to the main events. Okay, you know, I get it. But then to send your wife out, or maybe your wife, whatever she is, my wife at the time, on week night two, and then have Cody, quote unquote, not tell you he's gonna. Now that's a total crock of shit. Anyone who believes that Bruce Pritchard and Paul Levesque didn't know they were coming out at the end of night two, you're out of your minds. I mean, obviously it's pro wrestling. They're all workers. Cody's the biggest worker of them all. Okay. Don't buy that for a second. They knew full well that everyone that
I still love. We talked about it on Sunday. I love the idea that Cody was like, I know this guy doesn't want to come out. I'm like, are you sure? He's come out constantly.
Now, the fact, you know what? The fact that Cody said that was the tell, because that's classic Cody.
Right.
He's selling it. Okay. So, you know, you knew Levesque was going to have to come out.
I know this guy doesn't want to come out. He only came out on night one and then sent his wife out on night two and then started off Raw. But I don't know if he's going to want to come out here. Yes, Triple H, very a man who
famously humble.
Famously humble. A man who does not like being the center of attention, Paul Levesque. Yeah, I'm sure he was like, oh, Cody, no. Oh, fine. I guess I'll come out there for one quick little minute to congratulate you. Come on.
This is a guy who would come out before or after or both on every fucking NXT show when he was running NXT, whether it was the takeovers or the television tapings, you know, and you know, Levesque was going to come out.
He started every takeover. He started every takeover with that with that little headline. Are you ready?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, he got the first pop. Always got the first pop.
He's an egomaniac. He's got to let everybody know, you know, and I'm the one giving this to you. And then, you know, and he wasn't going to let that night of WrestleMania go by, which was very well received by the live crowd, very well received by the WWE fans. He wasn't going to come out and not take his bow and get his flowers. He wasn't going to let Cody suck up all the adulation. He had to come out and get a little taste. We all know that that's his game. Okay. And right now it's advantageous to the company because they want to push Levesque as the face of the company and make people forget about Vince McMahon, because this lawsuit is not going away. Don't forget that this company is being sued because they had a sex slave working for them for a number of years, who was being passed along to multiple executives. So let's all keep that in mind and not forget that.
Right. Who, by the way, Triple H is, and one of the people sued is Triple H's father-in-law and the man he worked directly under for 20 years. And the other guy that Cody brought out was Bruce Pritchard, Vince's very, 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 very long time right-hand man. So.
Not accused of anything.
Not accused. Just pointing out their relationship to Vince McMahon.
That's right. So not accused of anything. Officially. So yeah, so you know, this weekend, getting back to the point, it really became all about Paul Levesque more than even Cody. And you know, all right, he wants to take his victory lap or whatever. You know, that's one thing, but you know, it was a little over the top to me that that this became the Paul Levesque weekend. But yeah, so it's the new era that, and oh, by the way, they're dubbing it the Triple H era to put the cherry on the top of
right.
all
Oh, this man doesn't really want to be the center of attention. He's just come out on the last 2 nights and told you this era is named after him.
Right.
Like,
exactly. Yeah. I mean, come on.
he doesn't like attention. He just wants everybody to declare this era his and use his name when you discuss it every single time. Thank you.
And by the way, it had nothing to do with the booking of either main event. I mean, come on, this is the Rock's baby. But yeah, so that is that's takeaway number one, I think. And Cody had embraced the term Renaissance era that someone had made up on Twitter, and that quickly got snuffed out for Triple H era. So
not only did he embrace it, he put a little copyright on there. Put a little, hey, I own this.
Oh, did he really?
I think he did. I believe he did. Let me double check if that was actually true. I think that's probably very much the reason why they're doing Triple H era over the Renaissance era.
Cody swooped in and took the fucking copyright.
On April 4th, Cody Rhodes filed an interesting trademark, one which could hint at the future of the American Nightmare in WWE as a whole. The trademark he filed was for, quote, the Renaissance era, a term coined for the new boom period under Endeavor, Nikon, and Triple H. That's from the Sportster.
That's bizarre that Cody would trademark that. Let's try to get into his head here. Why would he do that? Doesn't make any sense. What can he do with that trademark?
I guess if he wanted to...
Is he the one who came up with... Did he coin it and then think, okay, well, if WWE is going to use it, I want to own it? Could that be the reason?
I don't know if he actually coined it. I think he just saw people say it and thought, hey, man, this is getting some steam. You know what? I'm going to jump ahead. And WWE probably is going to jump on this era, and I don't know. I think it was probably him just trying to get ahead of it and smartly. And he's a guy who understands copyrights. And obviously he fought this company for many, many years to get the copyrights to a lot of his father's things. So I think it was just him trying to jump in on it early. But then the company said, oh, well, no, fuck you. We're not going to use that term anymore. We're going to use, here's what he said to Fox News Digital. This is Cody Rhodes saying this. Quote, I've heard it coined as the Renaissance era, and I really like that outlook on it. For me, as a wrestler, I'm most excited that we no longer have to stand in the shadow of the Attitude Era because the last 2 years we've done better business than they ever did. It's not exactly true, but that's fine. And they did exceptional. That's not true, Cody.
In some respects, it is.
It's in money, total money, it is because, inflation exists, but I don't think you're quite.
It's a mixed bag. It's not entirely true.
It's not entirely true. It's open for some debate there. But anyway, and they did exceptional, unbelievable, amazing business. I'm only making comparisons on a black and white level, dollars and cents in terms of what WWE's been able to do over the last 2 years. I mentioned Renaissance.
Well, that's fair then.
Right.
You can't argue to have made more money.
No, they've certainly made more money now. They were not making billions then. They were making billions now. I mentioned Renaissance because of all the things we're trying, the changing of the programming and the characters. They now appeal differently. Every year has its signature thing. There was Hulkamania, Eat Your Vitamins, Say Your Prayers. There was the Attitude Era, the Jerry Springer type Crash TV. Now we have a more reach across the aisle and connect to the audience type relatable superstars. We still have the larger than life, no doubt, but that's all going into this very much, like I said, Renaissance era. So yes, he saw it, said, I like the term. I'm going to go on a bunch of interviews and talk about it. And then, oh yeah, I'm also going to get the copyright for it. And they said, we're going to use Triple H era. Thank you anyway.
Huh. He loves copyright and shit.
He does.
He's a big copywriter. As far as the Mania shows themselves, we did both of those on Instant Reaction Live over the weekend. You can find it on the $10 tier. An enormous weekend in terms of our output. I lost count of how many audios we did, starting with last Wednesday when we did the live flagship and going through today, I guess. So Wednesday to Wednesday.
I mean, shit, you could start it with Monday. We did 2 flagship pluses on Monday.
We did 2 flagship pluses on Tuesday, right? Or was it Monday?
It was Monday or Tuesday. I forget. Time is. I don't understand time anymore. So
we have at least 10 fresh audios up over the last week. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of them live. Yeah, 5 live audios, 6 audios together, 2 flagship pluses, 2 live flagships, 2 or 3 other WrestleMania weekend updates, a Dynamite review. So we did like 10 audios or something, like 10 or 11 audios in the span of a week. And we did cover both WrestleMania shows on an Instant Reaction Live on Saturday night, Sunday night. So if you're looking for WrestleMania reviews, you're not going to get those here, but you can get them on behind the paywall, patreon.com/flat, whatever the fuck you are.
Flagshippatreon.com. Flagshippatreon.com.
So that's where the reviews are. In a nutshell, we did not like night one. I don't think anybody really liked night one. I mean, even the hardcores didn't really dig night one. And the night one main event we did not like. But again, I don't think many people really did. And night two was a good show, for sure. And our feelings on the main event, much better show than night one. And our feelings on the main event, and I will summarize them, and Rich can tack on or correct if he'd like, was obviously in a vacuum, a very wild and fun, visceral kind of experience of a match, looking for easy pops and stars from the past and all that. But neither Rich nor I thought that they told a very good story with the main event. Our issues with the main event were that I didn't feel this was a good way at all for the Roman Reigns title run to end, because it didn't fit the theme of the rest of his title run. It would have been much better if Cody just beat the guy one-on-one, because Roman's whole thing is that his friends were saving his ass all the way along the way. And he was this insecure guy who wasn't as dominant as he everybody as he told everybody he was. And he knew that deep down. And then once he didn't have the help of the bloodline and all of his friends and was one-on-one with Cody, that would all show and he would get beat. Instead, they opted for Cody and friends in the main event, which at one point Cody laying around on the mat for 10 minutes while John Cena and The Undertaker and The Rock and Argentina Rocca and Pedro Morales and the corpse of Bruno Sammartino all made cameos and took the attention away from Cody and helped him win the match. I thought it would have been more effective if The Rock finally got his comeuppance by not having anybody's help, and then Cody proves that he's the better man. And I think Rich agreed with those sentiments. But look, for their core audience, they ate this shit up. Their audience ate this shit up. I was stunned at the number of people I saw, like in tears, because The Undertaker showed up. I mean, geez, I mean this, and I'm being sincere, and people aren't going to think I'm being sincere, but I really am being sincere when I say the following. I wish I could appreciate some of this stuff as much as other people do and get tears in my eyes because the fucking Undertaker dong goes off. I can't, I'm serious. I wish I connected emotionally with this company, or really any company, to where I could be emotional, like losing my shit as a grown adult, like not being able to contain my emotion. And in some cases in tears, because the Undertaker shows up,
because Mark Calloway in street clothes shows up.
I mean, yeah, because John Cena's music hits and he waves his hand in front of his face. Like, I wish, as I'm seeing 40-year-old men like acting like school children. I wish I wasn't so cynical and could enjoy. None of this hit me emotionally. I thought it was fun, while also thinking it was a poor way to tell the story of Cody winning. But it did not hit me on an emotional level, and people crying when Cody won and everything. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an asshole, but I did not find the win emotional. I don't find finishing the story to be this big emotional thing. I never bought into the Dusty always wanted to win this title, because I know that's a crock of shit. But look, that's pro wrestling. And if Cody convinced the fans that was a real story.
That's the game. That's the game.
That's the game. And he succeeded, But for me, I was never emotionally invested in that, because I know it was garbage. It's not even believable pro wrestling lore to me, because I know Dusty never cared about that title. But look, Cody found a story, started it on his first day on his first Raw in the company, established that story and saw it through, and people bought it, because there were grown adults crying when this man won the title, which, I mean, good for them. I genuinely wish I could appreciate this product as much as they do. But any other thoughts on that other than sending people to the paywall?
Yeah, go to the $10 tier, flagshippatreon.com. We did about 2 hours, I think, on each of those shows over the weekend, including also 2 hours on Supercard of Honor. on Friday. So a lot of audio for you there. But yeah, I think we did it at extended thoughts there. Like, I just definitely think that there was a better way to do Sunday, and I wasn't sure exactly the better way, but then you sort of laid out a scenario that I loved, and I actually pitched that same scenario to a couple guys that I know that have either been in the business, still in the business, whatever, a couple guys that have wrestled or used to wrestle or still wrestle or whatever, and I said, what do you think about this scenario of this is how this match could have played out? And every single one of them was like, oh yeah, that actually works out great. That's perfect. Where if people don't know, what we said is essentially what you pitched was, you know, not to fantasy book, but we were kind of fantasy booking a little bit, is that you can do all this stuff. You can have Cena come out and Undertaker come out and all these guys come out, but do it like 15 minutes in the match, 20 minutes into the match. Basically have Roman feel like he's desperate already, call in the troops, and Jimmy be sent out by Jay. Solo be sent out by, John Cena, and then The Rock being sent out by The Undertaker. I don't know. Again, I still don't know why it's The Undertaker, but whatever. Fine. It can be The Undertaker. And then essentially Roman gets up, looks around, all of his guys are gone. All of his cronies are gone, and him and Cody stare eye to eye. Cody kind of does a, hey, man, you and me, baby. There's no one left. You don't have any backup. Let's go. And the guys that I talked to, some of them even said, you know what I would have done in that sense? Is like reset the match fully. Like you can even start with a collar and tie, elbow tie up. Like start the match again and make the fans realize, oh shit, it's Roman one-on-one. There's nobody else. There's nobody else to help this guy. It's a whole new match now. Whatever that was before, whatever that angle was before is what it was. We could essentially have a brand new match, right? Like they both stand up. And one guy I even talked to said you can even have Roman kind of feel himself a little bit, like, you know what? All right, let's do this. Me, what? I got here on my own skill, so let's fucking go. Like he doesn't have to cower in fear, but he can kind of look around. There's no one there. Cody kind of points to him, hey, it's you and me, buddy. And Roman can
could be like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it, let's do it.
Let's do this. I'm here. I'm the biggest champion for a reason. I've been the champion for a long time. I don't need those guys. I got you right here.
He could start believing his own press clippings.
Exactly. So when
he could have the false bravado.
Yeah. So when my friend pitched me on that, I was like, shit, yeah, that's even better. Like I love that. Like it's the reset, and then Roman doesn't have to cower in fear. He can look around, but then he can also be like, no, you know what, motherfucker, let's do this one-on-one. You and me. I'm bigger than you. I'm better than you. I'm gonna beat you. And then Cody just beats him, and it makes the Cody win mean that much more, and it makes Roman look a little bit better as well. Where in the end, it was like those two guys were complete bit players while we had a little mini Royal Rumble with a bunch of ex-wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like that's they chose that. And we, our scenario, you still get that, but then you get a real definitive one-on-one Cody versus Roman.
The scenario, the way I lay it out, is Cody's friends take out Roman's friends early, super early, and in a way where they're not coming back, right? In a way where they're not coming back. That way it clears the runway for Cody to beat Roman mano a mano, one-on-one, clean in the center, and no one else takes the spotlight, right? And it completes Roman's story the right way, because that's been the essence of the Roman story all along. And you could but the reason they did it their way, with at the end of the match, with everybody coming out one by one to progressively bigger pops, was because that's what they favored moment over story. And everyone goes on and on. This is what drives me nuts about this company and their fans. Everyone goes on and on about what great stories they tell. But in situations like this, they bypass the better story for the moments. And they do this all the time, because this was not the better way to tell this story, or to complete Roman's story, or even to make Cody look good in the scenario. This was not the better way to do it. What they opted for was the easy pops. What they opted for is all of those people who went to that show and everyone who watched it 10 years from now saying, oh my God, remember, it was Cena, and then it was Undertaker, and then it was The Rock. And that's fine. And it obviously has worked. And because their fan base ate that up. But I think they'd still be talking just as positively about the show if you do it my way. But then you tell the better story, which is what they seem to pride themselves on, right? And Cody comes out of it better. The way they did it, Cody laid around on the mat for 10 minutes. And then once the deck was cleared, he got up and then beat Roman relatively quickly, but it felt like he needed all of that help the way that they did it. It felt like he needed the help. If you do it my way, you forget that he got all that help by the time you get to the end of the match, because I would have done it in the first 10 minutes of the match and then just had Cody beat the guy fair and square, the way that everyone knew he had him beat the year before. But that was my gripe with the main event. But I mean, look, we're in the minority, Rich, because people seem to fucking love this. There's people calling this the greatest WrestleMania of all time. Now, people say things in the moment. We see great shows and we get excited and we say things in the moment. That we're all fans and that's what we all do. But I'm going to ask you this question, Rich Craich, because I am not nearly and have never been as emotionally connected to this company as these people are today. There are probably points in your fandom where you were.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, there was definitely a period of 98 to 2001 or whatever where I absolutely was.
I'd have to go all the way back to like 87, 88, and I still preferred like Jim Crockett. You know what I mean, to WWE, even though I loved the WWF when I was a kid, right? So I'm going to ask you, I don't have any reverence for any particular WrestleMania. If someone asked me what my favorite WrestleMania of all time is, I wouldn't have an answer. If someone asked what the best WrestleMania of all time was, I wouldn't have an answer. I don't really have an answer for that. You probably do.
I do. WrestleMania X7, best and my favorite. Yeah, right there.
That's a great place to start then. Do you think, and I think I know your answer, that this WrestleMania was, first stat, yes, no answer, was this WrestleMania better than WrestleMania X7?
No.
Second question, can you see why today's fans are saying that this is the greatest WrestleMania? Can you see where they're coming from, or can you not even wrap your head around that?
I can't wrap their head around that unless their purview of this is the best WrestleMania is of the last 4 years or whatever. Like how many of them are watching, WrestleMania 6 on the WWE Network on Peacock or whatever. Right. You know what I mean? Like how many of them are like I was when I was a kid and consuming as much media as possible. And once I became a fan of this hobby, I couldn't stop watching it. I went to my family video. I went to I rented every video I could possibly rent. And once the internet became a thing, I made sure that I downloaded and watched every single thing I possibly could, to the point now where I have probably seen every single WWF and WWE pay-per-view ever, and I've definitely seen every single WrestleMania ever. So to me, no, but if these fans are coming at it from the aspect of I've only watched the last 5 years, then sure, it's probably the best of the last 5 years. Maybe. I kind of think last year's was pretty damn good, to be honest. I liked last year's WrestleMania Saturday, but this had a bigger finality and a bigger moment in the end. So yeah, if you want to call it the best of the last 4 or 5 years, sure, go for it.
This had a wild spectacle of a main event that was absolutely crowd pleasing. Okay. Do I think it's like one of the great matches of all time? Of course not, but we view wrestling a little differently than some of these people do. We weren't moved to tears when The Undertaker came out. But I think even from that standpoint, to me, it was still just a spectacle more than a match. It became a spectacle more. They wrestled for like the first 20 minutes and Roman and Cody, and it was a completely non-remarkable wrestling match at that point until the Usos came down, and then the parade of Easy Pops began. So from that standpoint, I can't call it a great wrestling match. I thought it was a fun time, like in a vacuum. And I thought the rest of the show on Sunday, as we talked about on the Instant Reaction, was very good. I can't imagine this will end up being my show of the year, let alone one of the greatest shows of all time, in my view. And the other way I look at it is, if you're counting Saturday as part of this WrestleMania, Saturday stunk. So are they just talking about Sunday when they say this is the greatest WrestleMania of all time? Because Saturday didn't add anything to the fucking resume. Right.
And if you combine both, you have one week or one night that I thought was pretty dreadful. I think the best, the best match
Tammy
I think was
and Gunther.
Yeah, right. And even that was like, I don't know, 3 3/4 or something like that. It was, I didn't even go notebook on that one.
Tammy and Gunther, and then, Rhea and Becky Lynch had a nice little match, and that was it. And the rest of the show had the all-time bad Uso match, which, I don't know. Yeah. You talk about Hall of Fame ballots coming up. That's, main event Jay.
Oh,
look, between that awful SummerSlam match against Roman and now this, we got to, for
it's
a guy who they call main event Jay, he does not come up in the big spot. This is one of the worst 1 year runs of a guy being in a big spot that you can think of. How much worse can it get than that SummerSlam match and now this? Just atrocious. I don't have adjectives to describe how poor he has come up in the big spot. Yeah, and the rest of the show is junk. So I think they're just talking about Sunday, although you would think that the kind of fans who think this was the greatest WrestleMania of all time, they probably liked Saturday, or at least dug it more than we did. Since they're emotionally attached to the company. But I thought that Sunday's show was a good show. But I guess if you're that wrapped up in Cody, I mean, here's the other thing too. I swear I'm not trying to be a cynical asshole. How could you get emotional over Cody winning when it was fucking obvious he was going to win when he lost the day before? We talked about that. They gave away the finish to Sunday when he got pinned on Saturday.
Yeah, I guess maybe those people worked themselves into a shoot of, well, we thought last year he was going to win and then he didn't. So this year maybe they could have taken it away from us. But yeah, I thought it was, I mean, to anybody, it seemed painfully obvious that this was.
Whenever I say this, I end up absolutely doing it. But I'm not trying to be mean. So I'm about to be really mean. I think you have to be a complete fucking imbecile if you thought he was going to lose on Sunday. Once he lost on Saturday. Like coming into the weekend, all right, maybe. But when The Rock pinned that motherfucker on Saturday, like that's okay. They just told you the finish of Sunday. Unless you're a small child or you're new to wrestling and you don't know how the story beats always, typically go. Because you couldn't pin this guy 2 nights in a row. You would have fucking killed him dead. You would have had a riot in that fucking building if he lost after he lost on Saturday. Are you kidding me? So I don't know. From that standpoint, I don't understand. And to me, the post-match stuff and the over forced emotion from like Michael Cole with his fake tears, and it didn't come off. It came off like manufactured emotion to me. Like they were really trying to overdo it from that standpoint to hammer home we're in a new era. This is the first moment of this new era, so we're going to just totally dial it up to 11 with the emotion, when it comes to Michael Cole and the dopey growly ring announcer, where all of a sudden now too, you're like a fucking monster if you don't like the way she ring announces.
I know. Yeah, we were ahead of the game, by the way. So if you want to get mad at us from years ago, because we've been ahead of this on like for 3 or 4 years or so. So yeah, get all mad at us.
Burying her since she stinks. I mean, I can't stand the way she ring announces. And here's the thing: anyone who says that, even in a polite way, is getting dogpiled, and she's leading the charge. And it's like you can't have skin that thin. Okay, clearly. The vast majority of people and the fans of the company love the way that you ring announce.
Right, and the company loves the way because they send out YouTube videos of compilations of your ring announcing. And there's a camera on you. There's a camera on you while you're doing all of your ring announcing. Yes. So I'm sorry.
They're going out of their way to put her over and attempt to make her a star and make her a thing. You got people saying she's the greatest ring announcer of all time. You got people saying that she's adding emotion. She's getting nothing but flowers. If you can't handle a few people saying, you know what, your growling is like chalk on fingers on a chalkboard, or I find you annoying, or I don't like your, and you can't handle that. I mean, that's just the thinnest. That's skin thinner than paper. I mean, you got to be kidding me. You got to be fucking kidding me. Okay, nothing's going to be universal. There's some people who think she stinks. I'm one of them. Okay, I think she's terrible. We've been talking about her, how bad she is for years. Does it fit the overproduced, over-the-top aspect of the way WWE does things? Yeah, she fits it like a glove. But that doesn't mean I have to like it. That doesn't mean I have to think I don't think she's good. And I think she's the worst ring announcer I've ever heard. And I think the one on NXT is the second worst ring announcer I've ever heard.
Alicia Taylor.
This is the style that the company likes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it stinks. And, and her and Cole crying. I mean, whether it was real tears, whether it was a strategy by the company to put the emotion over, I don't know. I just think it came across to me way over the top, forced, not organic in terms of emotion. But again, deep in the minority because their fans ate this up. Their fans loved this show, particularly the second night. The rating on Monday was on Friday and Monday were enormous. And now here's the thing. I'm curious what's going to happen now that The Rock is gone. Because again, did you see his quarter on Monday?
Oh my God, yes.
3 million people. And it's like, now look, obviously their ratings aren't going to crater, but those enormous fucking huge quarter hours, they're going to go away when The Rock goes away. Because Cody's not capable of that. Cody is over like a motherfucker and a giant star. Don't get me wrong. But he's not going to pop quarters like that. Roman is not capable of that. And he's probably not even going to be around for a while. So that's going to go away. So I'm interesting to see. I'm sure this week's ratings will be strong as well. But when we kind of level off to wherever we're going to level off to, coming off the euphoria of a WrestleMania that was massively over with their fan base, I want to see where the ratings settle. That's going to be interesting to me. And it also, obviously, when SmackDown leaves the network and goes to cable, I want to see what happens to SmackDown. That's going to be interesting, too. The thing is, Rock's going to come back at some point. And when he does, he's going to start popping those massive, ridiculous. Now, you want to talk Hall of Fame fucking quarters.
That's
he should have his own wing in a Hall of Fame. Like that's just, Kento Miyahara, please. The fucking Rock. That's a fucking, that's, forget it. I mean, he's only one of the five greatest draws in the history of the business. I mean, that he is. That's all there is to it. And when you look at these quarters in an era where it's hard to move quarters, with the TV landscape and everything. But I'm curious what happens now that he goes away and where we level off. He goes away. Roman goes away. You've talked about this. The bench isn't as deep as people think it is. Okay, so now what do we do? How do we make some new stars? And, until The Rock comes back and starts popping things for whatever his next, because obviously they're going to do Rock Cody. And then, I think, there's a natural Rock Roman match there because now Roman can blame The Rock for him losing the title because, he could blame Rock for his plan backfiring.
Right. You were supposed to be the final boss and you didn't do anything and you didn't. Yeah. So
so maybe you can get Cody and Rock at one of these stadium shows this year. And maybe you could do Rock Roman one night at WrestleMania next year in whatever city it's going to be, Minnesota, I guess. Yeah.
Next year's Minnesota. Yeah. It's not as deep of a roster as I think people think it is. With that said, though, I think that they have done a very, very good job of obviously ascending Cody. They've done a very good job of branding this era. Obviously, this is, the Triple H era. And that's, so I think that there's going to be, I'm very curious next week's Raw and see if there is a real tangible momentum with or without The Rock. That, hey, even though The Rock's not here, I'm tuning in now. This is a new thing. Like any fan that kind of tuned in during the Rock time might stick around and might hang with it or whatever. I think they've done a good job of sort of telling you and telling the fans, hey, stick with us. This is a whole new thing that we're doing here. And it's going to be all new and different or whatever. How long that lasts, we'll see. How long or how much that's actually worth, we'll see. But man, it feels like as a company, they're as hot as they've been in a very, very long time. And even comparing it to last year, we came onto this show probably at this exact same time last year and said, you know what? Cody's never going to be as hot as he was right now. This company fucked it up. This is when they should have had Cody win. And like in a traditional pro wrestling company, that probably would have been the case, but they were able to see through it. They were able to persevere and work through it. And now we're here a year later and it's possible, it's possible that they're hotter than they even were last year. And maybe because of The Rock, they probably are hotter than they were last year.
Well, that's what I mean. The Rock, I don't know if it's true because yes, with The Rock, they absolutely are hotter than they were last year. But that's why I'm saying I want to see what happens when The Rock goes away.
Yeah.
Because then we'll get a more realistic view of where they are. It's not as if The Rock being around doesn't count. Of course it counts. You know what I mean? But we also know that was always going to be a short-term deal. And it's going to be short-term when he comes back the next time. And the time after that, did The Rock truly take them to a next level that's going to be sustained, or are things going to level off every time The Rock goes away? And then The Rock is going to come back and just outclass all their big stars, including Cody, who is an enormous star. I'm not taking it every time, and look, this is why I thought it was so silly when the fans rejected Rock at first when he came back. And it's like, this is dumb. He's a bigger star than anybody they have. And that's going to bear itself out. And it did. But now he goes away. So we know he's coming back because they're not going to have him pin Cody and then and The Rock isn't going to do that. The Rock isn't going to pin Cody and then never come back and let Cody get that win.
No, he does business the right way. The Rock, for all you want to say about The Rock, he respects pro wrestling and does business the right way. So there's never been a case in The Rock's career that I can think of off the top of my head. Maybe somebody has an example where he hasn't done business the right way. He was, goddamn, during the Attitude Era, he would lose to everybody all the time. Like so much so, you go back and read old Observers, and it's like The Rock, got pinned by X-Pac on Raw. And it's like, buddy, what are you doing? Don't get pinned by X-Pac. What the fuck are you doing, man? You have to do that. But he was always selfless in that sense because he grew up in this wrestling business and he understands the benefit of, occasionally losing to people, occasionally taking pinfalls, because you can get a match again. You can come back and get that other match. So yeah, there's no chance that he said, yeah, I'm going to pin Cody and then I'm going away and I'm never wrestling again. Like he'll be back. He'll be back for SummerSlam, or like you said, he'll be back for WrestleMania in Minneapolis next year. But overall for Raw, you talked about those giant quarter hours. Overall, they averaged 2.36 million total viewers and a 0.83 in the 18 to 49 demo. That's the highest overall viewership since February 17th, 2020, and the highest demo number since September 30th, 2019, which, goddamn, those are completely different television landscapes at that point. When you're going back to 2019 and 2020, you're talking different. I mean, the way that people consumed cable television was just completely different back in 2019 compared to where we are here in 2024. And those are impressive numbers as well, because the second and third hour were head-to-head with the men's college basketball finals, which averaged a cool 14.8 million viewers and a 3.88 in the 18 to 49 demo. But obviously that didn't affect them all that much. I mean, maybe you can look at the quarter hours and say that, but I think the quarter hour trend was essentially, we're tuning in for The Rock, and then once The Rock's gone, we're going to tune out. And for the most part, that's kind of how it led.
Yeah, I mean, that quarter, I mean, because you look at the third hour of the show and it's under 2 million, right? Each quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so. Let me fire it up real quick.
And yet it averaged over 2.3 million for the entirety of the show, because it was carried by that 45-minute segment and really peaked when, once The Rock came out and it went over 3 million. So, just fucking enormous numbers for The Rock. And, we see how things go as we move along without him now.
Yeah, so 3.19 million was the 8:30 to 8:45. So it started at 2.68 million for the Triple H live promo Cody Rhodes video, 2.95 once The Rock showed up, and then once it was peak Rock and Cody in the promo segment, 3.19 million. Then immediately the fourth segment, now that you have an ad break, no Cody, no Rock, none of those guys, 2.62 million, and like you said, by hour 3, 10:30 to 10:45, 1.84 million.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's The Rock proved what an enormous fucking star that he was. And look, everybody, look, they put him on the debut of the Fox, the first SmackDown on Fox, and it did a number that they could never even sniff again. And so we've known that, but there was a lot of talk when they first rejected him that, maybe no one cares about The Rock anymore. Well, he made sure that they did.
Damn right.
He made sure that they did eventually. He wasn't going to be and he just feels bigger than everybody when he's out there. But now he moves along. Last year's WrestleMania Saturday, the big matches were the matches that we enjoyed were Seth Rollins, Logan Paul, Rhea Ripley, Charlotte Flair, which was a match of the year contender. Owens and Zayn and the Usos, which got 5 stars from Dave Meltzer and is a 9.14 on the cage match. The Heat Fest of Ray and Dom, which had mega heat in the building. And then the rest of the stuff was kind of nondescript. I mean, you had the 4-way, let's get everybody on the show tag match, which was, a nice little spot fest with the Street Profits, Alpha Academy, Viking Raiders, and Strowman and Ricochet. A bad Damage Control match against Becky, Lita, and Trish.
Oh, right.
Gimmicky.
Forgot about that match.
A gimmicky Pat McAfee Miz thing that wasn't even really a match. And John Cena putting over, quote unquote, Austin Theory in the least enthusiastic way possible of putting someone over, which opened the show, if you remember that. So now that you think, how does that stack up to this year's Sunday? I think it's pretty fucking close.
I think it's very close now that you read it off that way. I remember really liking that Saturday, and it's probably just because Rhea and Charlotte was good and Seth Logan was good, but the rest of that show kind of sounds like shit. Yeah.
No, the main event was, there was 1, 2, 3 legitimately, 1 great match, 2 very good matches. The Ray Dom thing, if you were into it, was full of heat. And then some stuff. And this year's show was the main event, if you as a spectacle. You know, it's not going to impress, you know, Lou Thesz or Nick Bockwinkel, but it was a spectacle. Logan Paul, Kevin Owens, Randy Orton 3-way, Drew and Seth, LA Knight and AJ Styles, and then the Bayley Io Sky match, which everyone seems to love but me. I thought that match fucking stunk, and there's a lot of people who think it was the best match of either show, which I think is insane, but okay, sometimes you have to accept you're the outlier, because I thought it was flat out bad. So those are your two shows. I don't know. You know, you had the cash in. See, this show had a lot of the bells and whistles.
Yeah, they love cash-ins. They love cash-ins, man.
The cash in. You got people crying over the fucking Undertaker. You know, so it had a lot of shit that their
cash-ins,
really
nostalgia, Cody finishing the story. They
Right.
You know what? It's one of those things that we talked about it on Saturday and Sunday too. Like if we can admit that this isn't for us and it's not, but they, you know, it's a good show if it lands for their audience, you know what I mean? Like in that, like I don't have to call it good, I don't have to think it's good, but like in the sense of, is WWE serving their audience properly? Yes, undoubtedly they
this
are.
show absolutely did. Yeah, no, now and it was a good show. I mean, I thought it was a good show. I don't think it's an all-time great show or anything like that. That's crazy.
No, but people just say that about everything now. You know what I mean? Like everything now is like, oh, it's the greatest. Oh, this is the greatest. Oh, Seth Rollins is one of the best ever.
I know they do, but I get the sense that they really, really mean it with this time. You know, sometimes there's emotion in the moment.
Sure.
We all get wrapped up in it sometimes when we're excited. But I really do think that, and look, and here's the other thing about it, Rich. The company is going to push the lore that this is the greatest WrestleMania.
Of course they are. Very advantageous to do that.
Because they want to put all the Vince stuff behind. This was a show good enough where they could say it credibly. And once the company gets behind the idea that this was the greatest WrestleMania of all time, and that was the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time, it is now written in fucking stone. Because you know how that goes. Because their fans are like lemmings. They will just, you know, they'll eat up anything the company sells them. So, you know, that's why I think this is real more so than when there's a fucking SummerSlam and people are like, oh, that was the fucking, and then in 2 weeks, no one's talking about it anymore. I think with this is going to sustain. And I think they're going to they're going to succeed, because when they do this kind of thing, they always succeed. They're going to succeed in making that main event and that Cody win like the most legendary thing in the history of the company. I think that's going to be the case. Do you buy the theory that Steve Austin told him no thanks, and that's why the Undertaker was in the spot?
I don't know if I buy the 100% theory, but I have to imagine that Austin was pitched to be the guy more so than the Undertaker. Now, I saw some people try to retcon it and say, well, Reigns beat the Undertaker at WrestleMania, so it makes sense that the Undertaker would come out and help him.
Sense.
I mean, it really doesn't make sense, dude. It's
look, here's the thing. If you liked the match and you thought this was great and you cried and you thought this is the greatest WrestleMania of all time, that's great. You don't have to like force square pegs into round holes. The Undertaker being out there made no fucking sense. Okay, you could just you could take one little L here, can't you? No sense. Don't try to. And I've seen all kinds of theories trying to make it make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Right.
It was
the Undertaker came out
a
without
cheap pop. That's all.
Yeah, he came out in no gear, just as Mark Calloway, soy boy face Mark Calloway.
Yeah.
Did he have a video about this?
Than chasing a pop. That's it. You know, the other stuff, the Usos, Cena taking out.
Yeah, it all made sense until the Undertaker came out, and you're like, what?
No sense.
I guess Austin wouldn't have made sense either, but.
Well, Austin and Rock are the rivals. That absolutely.
Oh,
makes
I see what you're saying. I see. Yeah, right. Okay.
Like Austin and Rock are legendary.
I get you. Yeah, all time. Yeah. Okay. I was trying to loop it into the Roman Reigns story, but that makes sense. Yeah. If you're talking about it against The Rock, yeah, the Undertaker has like no, I think.
Yeah, Undertaker Rock is like, oh, okay, they had a match.
They had a couple, King of the Ring, like 1999 or something like that. They had a match.
But there's no reverence for that. That rivalry.
No.
Where Austin Rock is an all-time, maybe the biggest rivalry in the history of the fucking sport.
Right.
So that's from that standpoint where it would have made sense. And then also people thought that when he was whipping Cody, because Austin's face was on the fucking production truck, they were sending you. Look, not everything is a goddamn fucking Easter egg. Okay. Sometimes you're just out there and there's a fucking production truck. Can we stop thinking everything is an Easter egg?
These guys aren't smart. These guys aren't that smart. Calm down, guys.
No, that's the power they have right now, though. They this Triple H era, these fans they are fucking bought in.
All in, baby.
They are bought in. And that's when, and that's a special thing to have if you're a wrestling promotion.
Yes, and you want that. That's a good thing to have. We will never, ever disagree with that ever. It is a great thing to have, a great advantage to have a wrestling company do stuff that their fans are completely in lockstep. That you want nothing more. That is the best thing you can do, and that's a testament to the company. We said it when AEW had it, where every time they did anything, people cheered, and everybody said, they can do anything on AEW, and the fans cheer. Yeah, that's great. That's what you want. That's the goal, and that's where WWE is right now, and that is great for them, and it's a testament to the work that they've done to kind of brand stuff and do all, and they got it. They got where everything, the fans are believing that these guys are playing 4D chess and everything matters and everything's a great story. And hell, they're releasing a documentary, I think today, right, about the booking of the WrestleMania main event and flipping it as like Paul Levesque being like, sometimes you got to adapt and change to what's the crowd's giving you and all that sort of stuff, trying to kind of retcon this disaster of the beginning of the WrestleMania story with no, this is kind of all what we all planned on having this be the case when it was all said and done or whatever, so I'd love to. I'm not going to watch this documentary because goddamn it, there's 1,000 things I'd rather do than watch a documentary about how smart Paul Levesque is and how they rebooted this WrestleMania main event or whatever. But that's what they're releasing, and they even when they're fucking up, they're able to sort of tell people, no, this was always kind of the plan, and we're just playing these 4D chess or whatever. Again, it's a great spot to be in for a wrestling company. So more power to them.
Yeah.
Particularly when you're embroiled in a sexual abuse lawsuit that your company's involved in. But hey.
Yeah.
It's neither here nor there.
So the rest of the weekend, I know we reviewed, quite honestly, more shows than any other podcast or website is ever going to review.
More than we should have. More than we should have.
Now, listen, someone's got to do it. Someone has to care about the world of pro wrestling outside of two fucking companies. So it may as well be us because that's what we've done since the beginning. So some other overall thoughts. I mean, best shows of the weekend, I would have to say, aside from WrestleMania Night 2, I don't think there was a great top to bottom show the entire weekend. I thought the back half of Dean was great and special. But the problem with Dean is pre-intermission. No, not much there. So it was like a tale of two shows. The ETU versus Dragon Gate show was probably my favorite top to bottom show of the weekend.
I was going to say, I've caught up on that show. I think that's my favorite overall show of the weekend because I think there was only 8 matches. And what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches. And I would say all but one, at least on some level, delivered enjoyment to me. And even the Ultimo Dragon, Danny Demento is like, whatever, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like,
do you see what I meant about that match?
Yeah,
now? Like you didn't care that it wasn't good.
No, and that's like I feel bad saying like I didn't like that match because like of course I didn't like that, but it was just kind of like I see what's happening here. It's okay. Like they're not trying to have a good match. It's clearly what I knew what the intention was. I knew what we were going for here. But yeah, other than that match, I would say the rest of the show, as far as an overall show, was the first one that I probably watched all weekend where I didn't think anything sucked. The opener wasn't great, but I don't think anything sucked on that show. And even the shows that I did like, I thought there was at least 1 or 2 parts of the show or even like a couple of matches here and there that I thought sucked or were just a waste of time. And that wasn't the case with the ETU versus Dragon Gate. So that might be my show of the weekend. Even though the second half of Dean was as good as it was, where I'm probably going to put Dean over the top because in terms of like a ceiling, Dean had the highest ceiling for me of any show. But I'm talking overall show from top to bottom, it's probably the ETU versus Dragon Gate show.
Second half of Dean, they came out firing and it didn't let up. And when you have a Daniel Makabe, Tim Thatcher match that even I enjoyed.
Yeah, that you and I came on here and talked about how much we loved it. That's
when we don't like the style at all, and the dog collar match delivered. And then they had just a bunch of work rate specials on the back half of that show. Slim J, Adam Priest, that might be my favorite match of the whole weekend on any show. I was blown away by that match. that was the Slim J revenge game. I mean, he was out to show the world that Tony Khan made a mistake, and he convinced me that he did. I couldn't believe how great Slim J was in that match. So, and the whole back half of that show was really great. It's just the first half, decidedly not for me, a lot of it. I don't need Tank sitting in a folding chair, punching a guy in the face and getting punched back. And whatever. It's, in the ETU show, again, nothing that's going to make like my match of the year list, but Marcus Mathers versus Dragon Kid. And Marcus Mathers is 21 years old, and you were right. I mean, he's going to be on national TV.
Yeah, he's gotten real.
He's
good.
a lock. He's a lock. He's going to be on national TV. He's just he's 21 and he just gets it. He knows how to, the stuff I talk about all the time, between the moves, he gets it, and that's the last thing a lot of guys get. And he gets it at 21.
Right. It wasn't there for him like 8, 9, 10 months ago or whatever, but I saw him not that long ago, maybe a couple of months ago at a live show at Dreamwave, and I was like, shit, he figured it out. He's got it. And it's like, now you can see how he's, he used to be in these scrambles with all these other dudes who don't get it and still didn't get it or whatever. I'm not going to name names or whatever, because a lot of these guys are still very young, and they still could get it as well. I'm not trying to bash any of those guys, but it was very clear that like something clicked with him, and he was like, oh, never mind. I get it now. And that's what happens in wrestling. Like, you get it. Once you get it and get the other stuff, it's like, yeah, you can do all the flips and all the dives and all these crazy scramble shit, but there's something about the in between those moves and in between that stuff. And he got his body in good shape too. He's got a good looking body at this point. He understands the in betweens, and it was like, boom, there it is. And now you see him this weekend. To me, he was one of the stars of the entire weekend, if not the star of the weekend, because it was like, okay, yeah, this guy has ascended. By this time next year, there's a very good chance he's main eventing some big shows, or he's a big part of big shows. And hell, he main evented, he was a big part of big shows this weekend too, but he's going to be on that next level by next year for sure.
He's one of the most exciting indie guys out there in terms of upside. Shun Skywalker, Alec Price was an excellent match, and Shun actually worked hard in that one. The Dragon Gate guys' effort was sketchy all weekend, but they respect this promotion. They've worked this promotion before. They have a nice relationship with this promotion, and they all had their working shoes on.
And the promotion respects them too, because it was like, you talked about the commentary. You told me about the commentary before I watched it. It was Jack Solomon and Jay, obviously Dragon Gate Jay, doing the commentary, and it was, oh my God, after the weekend that I heard and the people that I heard doing commentary, to have these two guys just treat this with reverence and respect. And Jack's bouncing stuff off of Jay. Jay's bouncing stuff off of Jack. Jack talking about guys' accolades. Jay, being like, yeah, no, you're right. No, Yamato is a 5-time Open the Dream. Like, it was just, you know what I mean? Like the simple things of like, oh my God, a professional operation here. No one's screaming. No one's going, God damn it, motherfucker, unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like, no one's just screaming at me the entire time and swearing. It's just two guys getting on a microphone and commentating a wrestling show and moving their voices up when it needed it, and keeping the voices down when it doesn't need it. It's a lost art in today's pro wrestling. And
even more than that, two guys who vaguely knew a lot about the opposite promotion and were informing each other during the show.
They would fill in the gaps. Like Jack would say something and he'd say, some Yamato, obviously a former Open the Dream Gate champion. And Jay would say 5 times actually. And he'd go, yeah, 5 times. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Cool. Just that little stuff like that where it's like, oh, okay, this is a professional.
And then in effect, you're informing the audience at the same time and they were inquisitive. Like Jay would ask Jack stuff about ETU, and then Jack would ask Jay stuff about Dragon Gate. And then they were setting each other up, and probably in some instances they knew the answers, but they were setting each other up for the benefit of the audience. And it was just the best commentary of the weekend. And I'm glad you agree, because I enjoyed the hell out of it. And I learned things about ETU that I didn't know. I learned a bunch of things about Dragon Gate I didn't know. And they treated it like the 7-match series, like there was things on the line. And I thought, Jay was fun. It was great when he was like, look, we meaning Dragon Gate might come out on top of this, but we're losing the most important matches. We're losing the title matches. We're losing you know what I mean? Like it was.
We're being serious here. Just be fucking serious. And all I want, care. Be serious.
Because if you don't care, I don't care. Right? Yeah. But if you care, then you're going to make me care. And Brandon Kirk Casey was such a great match. And Casey had been to this promotion before, and the fans remembered him, and he was over like crazy, and yeah, so it was just such a fun show, and Mike Santana and Yamato killed it in the main event.
Match rocked. Yeah, that match rocked.
And
fucking
great. That was probably my favorite top to bottom show of the weekend. Now on a old school classic WrestleMania weekend, this would be like the 5th or 6th best show. But on a weekend like this, especially since ROH did not deliver, which was, I thought that was a disappointing show. And I thought the NXT show wasn't any good, but you're going to have trouble with me anytime there's NXT, because I can't fucking stand NXT. But I thought this was my favorite top to bottom show, and may have been, the best as well. But any other big picture thoughts? We have a lot of micro thoughts, on the $5 and $10 tier with the Mania audio. But anything else you want to talk about in regards to WrestleMania weekend?
I think I'm WrestleMania weekend out. I believe I tried to catch up with a few of the shows that I hadn't watched, and like, I don't know about you. I started the clusterfuck.
Can't get into it.
The bell rang for the clusterfuck. One guy came out, and I was just like, I'm good. I don't even remember who it was. I don't even remember who it was. My brain was such mush. I was like, done. It was Monday, and the nurse was like, "You're watching wrestling again." And you're like, I was like, I'm right. Why am I watching wrestling again? Fuck this. I'm done. And I closed it, and I moved on with my life, and it was over. And now I'm done with WrestleMania weekend. I can't go back. I tried. I was like, you know what? I didn't watch the clusterfuck. I should probably watch the clusterfuck. And no, I should probably watch like at least a match in spring break. No, forget it. I watched more than enough. I started on Tuesday, basically. I'm good. So declaring it over. I'm declaring it over.
It's hard to do. It's hard to do. No great classic show unless you want to say WrestleMania weekend night 2. I don't think there was a wrestler of the weekend. Normally there is.
Nah,
I can't even pick
I don't.
one
Yeah,
this weekend.
I don't know who that one would be. I mean, people say Mike Bailey, but the thing I have with Mike Bailey, and I talked about it a little bit on one of the shows.
I don't know.
I don't feel anything when I watch Mike Bailey wrestle.
No. The other thing is good for him for getting booked so much, but then you don't want to see him anymore.
No, burn, brass monkey play. I was like, fuck off! I'm sick of your brass monkey. God damn it, go away.
Halfway through Thursday, you've had enough of him, and and you've seen all of his spots, and he had a much better weekend last year. So there was no standout performer of the weekend or anything like that. There was no. In terms of great matches, there weren't really a lot. There were a lot of matches I thought were pretty good. Like Mike Bailey, Masha Slamovich was a good match. I thought that Jordan Oliver versus, how do you pronounce that French guy's name that wears the mask? Angel Blanc or whatever.
Yeah, I just go by White Eagle. I go by White Eagle because my French is worse than my Spanish, believe it or not. So yeah, I just go by White Eagle.
They had a good little match to open up the Game Changer versus the World show, but there weren't really any great matches that I saw, that I reviewed. Probably the best match for me of the weekend was Kyle Fletcher versus Lee Johnson. And that was more of a spot fest than anything, and shouldn't have been the best match of a WrestleMania weekend. It should be like the 8th best match of a WrestleMania weekend. So, not a lot of great matches, not a standout performer, not a lot of great top to bottom shows.
A couple of the hype matches did disappoint too, like Slamovich versus Shiri. I don't know if you ended up watching that match.
You didn't hear me talk about that. I called it the most boring match I've ever seen in my life. No hyperbole.
That's right on the money. Yeah, that's probably true. And it's like the worst part about it was the bell rang, and within like 4 minutes, you're like, yeah, we're fucking going to the main event. we're going to the time limit.
And the worst part about it is it's 1 a.m. and everyone in the crowd
know we're going to a draw too. Everybody knows that's where we're going.
And they've been going to shows since 10 a.m. It's now 1 a.m. They know it's a draw. The work was dull as fucking dishwater, and it all made for a mix to what I believe is the most boring match I've ever seen. The most boring, competently worked match I've ever seen.
Yes, it's a good match. I'm using air quotes there. Like on paper, fundamentally a good match, but absolutely boring as fuck. The fans don't care. The wrestlers don't care. You probably don't care watching it at 1 a.m. or whatever. That was one of my all time, because a lot of people were upset that I didn't add that match to my, the matches I was looking forward to.
You're hyped for.
Yeah, and I was like, I don't know. Slamovich is hit or miss with me. Sometimes I really like her. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes she goes out there and just throws bombs for a couple minutes, and I love it.
That's what she has to do.
And then sometimes she goes to these, I'm a professional wrestler, and I'm going to go have a professional wrestling match. A lot of times I don't love those, and I was kind of worried this was going to be more of that. And then, Jesus Christ, was it more of that than even I could have expected?
Yeah. It was very, very boring because it was boring. They went for like, we're going to grapple.
Yeah.
And it was 1 a.m. and they tipped off the draw early. I mean, the ring announcer, they didn't announce a time limit for any other match. Like,
right.
And then they're doing time calls. And it's like, come on, we know we're going to the draw here. And it was so boring. But anyway, that was WrestleMania weekend. And I just feel like, Minnesota next year, we're going to get a little First Wrestling. Maybe.
Yeah.
We're going to
First
get
Wrestling can step up. They're a professional operation. So that'll be
yes,
that'll be
they
good
are.
For them.
That's the first one I thought of when I found out it was Minnesota. And, I'm sure the Game Changer will drag the crew up there again. And the carcass of what the collective has become. There's just no juice anymore. It's rough. And, I don't know if DDT and Dragon Gate and Stardom and are going to be interested in to keep coming here to wrestle in front of these dead crowds, in front of against substandard opponents for the most part, because the scene is so dry. It's wasn't great. I don't know if it was as bad as I thought it was going to be. Maybe it was a little better because my expectations were on the fucking floor.
I thought the floor was higher, the ceiling was lower. Does that make sense?
Maybe, but it really hurts when ROH doesn't deliver.
No, ROH didn't deliver. And you know what? Honestly, if you weren't like me and really, I mean, Gus, you kind of did this a little bit too. Normal people that just picked up WrestleMania weekend on like Thursday, I think the floor was pretty high, even if the ceiling was pretty low. People that watched the Wednesday shows and the Tuesday shows or whatever, we found the floor pretty quickly.
Yes.
We discovered the floor. So the floor, I guess, for some people is probably a little bit lower than others. But if you just picked it up on Thursday afternoon, so let's say Bloodsport was the first thing you saw, then the floor was okay. But nothing really, there wasn't a wall-to-wall show that was really great. There wasn't a wrestler that was really great. And I don't know that there was a match that, I think when it would come down to the end of the year, I think, match of the year, for Voice of Wrestling match of the year, I think you'll get the dog collar. I think we'll get some play. I think Makabe and Thatcher could get some play.
Absolutely.
I don't think any other match on the entire weekend will get any play.
I'm curious what the Mania main event the Sunday main event will do.
Right.
I mean, I don't think it's gonna threaten the top spot or anything, but I'm curious what that will do. As far as other WrestleMania matches, you're right. None of the others are gonna threaten for match of the year.
Like I liked Micah and Megan Bain from the Stardom show, but that's not a match. I mean, the Stardom's going to have 40 matches. They're going to be better than that.
Yeah, from this WrestleMania weekend, I'm thinking about this. I don't think anything will finish in the top 20 for match of the year.
Yeah, I think that's probably accurate.
The only one that has a prayer is Cody Roman, and that'll be like a gimmicky. You're not voting for that because you thought it was like a great, You're voting because you cried.
Right. Someone said, in our chat room said Eddie and Mark. I don't think that Eddie.
Oh, maybe that could be.
Maybe you're gonna have to be sentimental about it. I think. I think.
Yeah.
When the year is done, there's gonna be a lot of matches that you're gonna remember more than you're gonna remember Eddie Kingston and Mark Briscoe.
I enjoyed that match, but like we talked about on the Instant Reaction, because it wasn't really built well at all. I think the emotion came up short. I really do. I thought if that had been a better built match, and they had the same exact match they had, I would completely agree that it would threaten a top spot. I don't think it will, though. Would it stun me if it finishes top 20? No, but do I think it will? If I had to answer right now, I would say no, it won't. But we'll see. But yeah, I think that and the Mania Night 2 main event are the only ones with a prayer.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we got a lot of other stuff.
Let's get to it here. So you want to talk, we got New Japan, we got CMLL. Where do you want to go here?
Let's do the CMLL first. Why not?
All right. So this was Friday during WrestleMania weekend, so it kind of got lost in the shuffle a little bit. But we had the CMLL show from Arena Mexico on Friday. Main event was Bryan Danielson versus Blue Panther. 25 minutes and 37 seconds. Danielson gets the win. It was called a quote-unquote submission match because I guess they didn't want to do 2 out of 3 falls or whatever. They just wanted to do a straight submission. And Joe, I fucking love this match. You want to talk about a match that I think might appear in the top 20 for match of the year? I think Bryan Danielson and Blue Panther might find a way there from just a sentimental standpoint and then from just a straight work standpoint too. I mean, that was just a classic bit of pro wrestling. It's just a classic thing of like, this is what I love about pro wrestling is just a match like this, a match that Bryan Danielson's wanted this match for decades. He finally gets it and he goes out there and he is just having the time of his fucking life. Blue Panther turns back the clock a little bit. A lot of technical work, a lot of strikes, some good dives. Blue Panther's still out there diving. The man's what?
63.
63 years old. He's diving. If I did that, I would hurt everything in my body if I did that.
Yeah, I mean, making it a submission match for one fall was pretty brilliant because what it allowed them to do was hide a lot of Blue Panther's weaknesses at 63 years old. So, what it also did was it really helped the kayfabe aspect of it. Now, because, try to follow what I'm about to say. So, because it's a submission match, right? Bryan Danielson, who's, 20 years younger than this guy and still in phenomenal physical shape and in his quote unquote, prime for all intents of the argument, in terms of because he's still out there he's still one of the greatest wrestlers in the world, right? And he's in there with a 63-year-old man who everyone recognizes as well past his prime and is a legitimate senior citizen. But if you make it a submission match, then in kayfabe, Danielson is working for grapples and working for submissions and working to weaken body parts as opposed to focusing on striking and throws, because those don't do you any good because you could pin the guy for 60 seconds and it doesn't matter, right? You have to make them submit. So it kind of evens the playing field in kayfabe with the physical condition of each guy, with one guy being 21 years younger and in the prime of his life and the other guy being a senior citizen who's over the hill, because Bryan has to play Blue Panther's game and grapple with him.
Right. He can't just go out there and kick him. He just can't kick him in the chest for 10 minutes
beat
and
him
then
up
pin him.
And punch. Right. Because that doesn't win you the match. So, he has to play Panther's game, and you could tell a story where the older guy has more craftiness and moxie than the overconfident outsider. And if you're good, and Danielson's great, and Blue Panther was great and is still very good, you can tell that story effectively, even though you have this giant kayfabe hurdle to overcome, and that one guy is almost 65 years old. So to me, making it a submission match ended up being pretty brilliant. And Danielson is so fucking good that there was really never a moment in this match where I was like, I really have to work to suspend my disbelief here because this is an old man. No, it just worked as a pro wrestling story. And Danielson probably wanted to lose the match.
Absolutely.
It's like
100% he probably wanted to lose that thing. And one thing that you mentioned as well about, trying to even the playing field, it never felt like one guy was like this guy in the prime and the other guy was over the hill. That even if at certain times it did, Danielson would fill those gaps by like flexing to the crowd and just being an asshole about it. You know what I mean? Because like there were moments where he'd have Blue Panther in some sort of hold, and instead of like rearing in the hold even more, he would just like flex or kind of go yes to the crowd to kind of play it up a little bit as if like, yeah, you know what, I'm cruising here, man. I got this guy on the ropes. He's got nothing on me. So I'm going to take my time to kind of flex in front of you and do all that sort of stuff. And I read this review on Cage Match, and very rarely now, these days it's very dangerous to go on to Cage Match.
Yeah.
But with the CMLL match and like
a little safer.
Yeah, it's a little safer. You're getting actual good reviews. So you got this one from Fifth Pillar, which I really loved. It's 9.0 out of 10. Again, a rational rating for a match that someone might really, really enjoy, but not going 10 out of 10 or whatever. 9.0 is perfectly fine. Quote, this was some 2006 ROH American Dragon magic, with Danielson clearly having a blast conducting the Arena Mexico Cathedral Choir. This is the part I love the most. Match itself had an 80s traveling world champion versus the territory's top face vibe, which is always a joy. And that's exactly, when I read that, I was like, yes, it's like watching Ric Flair go into Texas, Ric Flair go into wherever, and he's strutting and you guys are getting a benefit because I'm coming to your town to show my wrestling to you. And that's how Danielson was a lot of times. He was like, look at me. I'm Bryan Danielson, and I'm in Arena Mexico. You are all having a great opportunity watching me wrestle and doing these sort of things or whatever. And that hubris would catch him sometimes. And sometimes he'd get a little too caught up in that, similar to how a lot of times it would catch up to Ric Flair, where the local babyface would, get Flair at one of those moments and get him for a near fall or get him for, a couple of bits there. So I love that aspect of it, that Danielson just came in just with a shit-eating grin on his face. And yeah, Blue Panther is amazing for his age. The fact that he's, what'd you say, 63 and still able to go and hang with Danielson as much as he was. Yeah, it's fucking phenomenal.
Now you have to, you have to enjoy the style to some extent. You know, if you're listening to us right now and you don't really pay attention to lucha and you don't follow CMLL and you jump into this and, you know, this isn't going to resemble Bryan Danielson's AEW matches or anything like that. It's very much a lucha match in a lot of ways, right? With some American elements sprinkled in. But, you know, he wanted to lose. You know, he let, you know, Panther locked on that Kimura or the arm lock or whatever, but Danielson was under the ropes.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. The finish for people that didn't see is Danielson basically tapped out, but his
tapping furiously.
His leg was under the ropes, so the referee was like, "No, your leg's under the ropes." So Blue Panther thinks he won, and then goes to the referee, and he's like, "What are you talking about? What do you mean I didn't win?" And that's when Danielson slides in behind him and then puts him in the label lock and taps him. But Danielson made sure that Blue Panther got the visual tap out on him. It was just a matter of, his feet were under the ropes and the referee didn't count it.
And they're building a rematch.
Of course.
They're building a fucking rematch. And I think after this one, people are okay with that.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah.
But wasn't Blue Panther on the visa list?
He was. So we're going to Canada or we're going to Mexico again for this one. Yeah, Blue Panther, I believe, was on that list.
So when is AEW going to Canada again? Because they're there now. Or they were just there.
They were just there. They were just there. Yeah. I don't. How far out is their calendar even?
Because you know they're talking like Danielson.
Bring him to Wembley. I think Danielson should probably do something better at Wembley than Blue Panther.
Yeah,
so I don't.
He's got to do something bigger for Wembley. Yeah.
Otherwise, they are in May. They do a swing of Winnipeg, Edmonton, and Vancouver. So you could do it in May. If you want, then it looks like we are in America for the rest of.
You know what? I'll tell you what.
July, they're at the Calgary Stampede, the Saddle Dome, in July 10th. So I guess maybe
is that a Rampage or
that is a
Dynamite
/ Rampage. Dynamite / Rampage. Yep.
I'm sure there's a collision on one of those May dates somewhere because, man, you want to give me this match. On a Saturday night on a collision as a main event, I'll eat this for fucking breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Oh, that's a collision match for sure. Yeah,
that's a collision match. That's for the colliders. You know, that's you know. So yeah, I guess you could do it in. That's going to be one of your spots right there, one of those 4 cities, because I don't think the visa thing. You can't count on that being cleared up. You know, because you never know what's going to be decided with that. But because Danielson he said, well, I want to do it in AEW. That's the idea, right?
I think I forget exactly the words, but essentially just we'll let's do it on my turf next time. Let's go to my neck of the woods next time.
Yeah. So I don't know how AEW fans would take to it. I mean, they really like Bryan Danielson, so they're not going to shit on anything he does. But you know, there's going to be American fans or North American fans, since it'll probably be Canada, who don't pay attention to lucha, and they're going to see a 63-year-old guy, and he could wear his mask because he won't be in Mexico, right? So he doesn't have to get cleared by the commission or anything like that.
Oh, right. I forgot about that. Yeah, the mask helps. The mask certainly helps. So yeah,
it does help. Yeah, because he just looks like a friendly fucking
right. He's not in the best shape. He's 63. Hell, if I look like that when I'm 63, I'll be in a good. Yeah, he's just like because he's got that little goatee going. He looks like a very friendly guy when you see him without the mask.
He looks like your neighbor Fred. You know, he's just like, hey, Fred.
Yeah, hey, how's it going? Yeah, you guys are taking the garbage out at the same time. And he goes, yeah, nice weather. Ah, looks great. And
Fred has a lovely wife named Maureen.
Yeah.
Who she makes her own pickles and always gives you a jar every fucking summer. You know, I have some pickles. Oh, sure, I love your pickles, Maureen. Right. That's what he looks like. You know, so
maybe she makes tamales. She makes tamales or something. Sends you over a plate. In this case,
yeah, you know, this would be a Mexican family, Blue Panther. So yeah,
I might live next to this exact scenario that you're laying out. I do get tamales from my neighbor a lot, so it's quite nice.
That's it. You know,
I give her peppers sometimes. She gives me tomatillos, and then we exchange tamales. So yeah, it's not bad.
I just made a batch of vinegar peppers the other night. I'm letting them ferment a little.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
I'm gonna crush those fuckers in a couple weeks. I can tell you that.
You got a neighbor you can give them to? You don't talk to your neighbors. You don't sound like a guy who talks.
I'm not giving my neighbors shit. They're for me. Like giving a. You kidding me? I got sandwiches to make. Yeah, so no, yeah, I don't know if North American fans who don't follow Lucha and they it's not, again, these don't resemble the matches he's having in AEW, but but this is not grading on the curve. I mean, this was a legitimately great match somehow, very compelling and all of that. And Danielson's just so great. And by the way, another packed arena Mexico for this one. Cubs told me that someone that was there told him that they estimated 98% full. So the last time Danielson was there with the Blackpool Combat Club, that was a super no vacancy full house, literally hanging from the rafters, not one seat available. And then Danielson comes back for this match against Blue Panther, and another of a sellout with scattered seats remaining, 98% full capacity. So Danielson popping a couple houses down in Arena Mexico.
Because this was not a loaded show otherwise. We'll talk about the rest of the show here in a minute.
That's right.
And I was kind of surprised when I was like, oh, yeah, Danielson Panther. So I watched the main event first, and I said, I got a little bit of time. Let me watch the rest of the show. And I was kind of amazed. I was like, oh, that's it. The rest of the show is really not a whole lot to it. So you got to get this one's credit to Panther and Danielson 100%.
Yep, because, Mystico was on the show, and the semi-main event was a strong main event, star power-wise. The rest of the show may have been a little weak by Arena Mexico standards.
Definitely.
So, it wasn't a strong show by those standards at all, whereas the previous show that Danielson was on was a loaded show. It's one of their biggest shows of the year.
Mm-hmm.
So that helped. But this shows that Danielson, and plus, he had something to do with the draw, because listen to the fucking crowd. They loved him. Now, they wouldn't root against Panther, but they wouldn't boo Danielson either.
Right. When he said yes, they said yes. When he did something, they cheered. But yeah, they didn't boo Panther or root against him. But when Danielson wanted them to cheer, they cheered.
Correct. So from that standpoint, he popped two houses in a hot Arena Mexico, and it's very clear that he's super over down there. But the rest of the show, quickly, it opened with Dragon. Do you have anything else to say about the main event?
No, that's it. Yeah, I loved it. If you're listening to this now and you haven't watched it, go out of your way, watch it. It's great.
So very quickly, Dragon de Fuego and Rayo Metallico, two guys that I don't happen to be familiar with. I don't think I've ever seen them. They opened up the show in a lightning match. I have to assume that they're young wrestlers from another city, because they don't even have cage match profiles, these two guys. But, they went out there in a lightning match, which, again, 10-minute time limit, one fall. And I would describe this as a perfunctory lucha match where everything was executed well, but neither guy was reinventing the wheel. But
none of this didn't impress me very much.
Yeah, but see, I thought the execution from both of them was very sound. And I thought these were two guys who I'd like to see more of and see if they develop. Did the match blow me away? No, it was an Arena Mexico match with two guys who did topes and all of the standard issue shit that you expect to see, and they did it well. And that was all there was to it. And Dragon de Fuego wins with plenty of time to spare, because a lot of times these lightning matches, they take it right up to the fucking limit.
Yeah.
This was interesting.
Have to spare. Yeah, plenty of time.
You know what's interesting? You notice the clock has hundredths and tenths of a second, like it's the fucking NBA shot clock now.
They're
like,
gonna go down to it. I want to see someone go down to it. Yeah, I want to see someone get right down to it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm waiting for Kenny Skywalker to do a tip in with 0.2 left or something. Like what the fuck? They got the tenths and hundredths running on the
is that really
thing.
going to come up in a situation? I don't know, but
right. I mean, they should do it where it does, but man, would that be hard?
That's tough.
Especially the way these...
That's pretty tough in lucha. Yeah,
Crixus, Okamura, and Vegas. We cannot escape Okamura.
MLW superstar Okamura, man. He is on everything we watch these days.
I like Vegas with the $sign on the mask. I like that. Versus Audaz, Fuego, and Hombre Bala Jr. I love me some Fuego. So Okamura and Fuego were the captains. This was 2 falls to 1 to the Rudos. Fuego did pick up the fall in the second fall, but then the Rudos won the match in the third fall. And again, perfectly fine lucha. I enjoyed it for what it was, but again, these are not. This was a definitely a little lower on star power for Arena Mexico than what you're typically used to on a Friday night. Next was the Cybernetico semifinal. I have a confession to make. I don't like the Cybernetico matches.
I didn't like this at all, man. I thought there was some bits that were nice, but like I couldn't focus. It was one of these matches where I just don't know what's going on. I'm watching and I know a lot of the names and I know who's all in this thing. It's just like
there were some decent guys in it.
There were some decent guys. Like as Finjay, I love him. I think he's great.
Yes,
and Magnus we've talked about as well. And it was just like a lot of shit was happening. And as I watched it, I was like, it finished, and I was like, I don't know if I retained anything from that match. You know what I mean? Like it was a lot of stuff happened. A lot of people were in and out, and I just I didn't love it, even though the work in it was pretty good, and there was some decent stuff in it. It's just so many things happen, and I think I'm not a big Cybernetico fan.
I don't like them. My confession was gonna be I normally skip them, but because I knew we were reviewing this show, I watched it because we're reviewing the fucking show. Futuro was in it though, and he obviously did a couple of his bonker spots. He got hurt last week. He's off the shows. He's I think he's okay though. They said he's going to rest at home for a couple weeks and then come back. So I guess it wasn't a serious injury, but yeah, he was in this, and I just don't like these matches. They start with like the Battle Royal gimmick to determine the sides in the order, and then it's elimination. Magnus was the winner. He moves on to the final. I don't remember who won the other semi, but I know it happened already. But yeah, they're just not my bag. I mean, everyone gets a chance to shine, I guess, but I don't know. I like the traditional matches better. So the semi-main event was Mystico, Volador Jr., and Atlantis Jr. versus Rocky Romero, Templario, and Averno. So
I like this match a lot.
This was so much fun. This is the business end. Again, they didn't do any big angles. It was this group of guys who have been going at it for over a year having the good match that they have almost every Friday. You know what I mean?
They can have this match with their eyes closed at this point.
Yes. Yes,
they may have. They may have in this match. I don't know, because it's like they hit everything exactly perfect. Everybody's always in the right spot. Everyone knows where to be. They know the exact right points to do something that's going to get the crowd reacting. They know exactly the right point for the Rudos to get booed, and it's just, you know what I mean? Like they just nail every single thing perfectly, and they're kind of telling the story right now too of Atlantis Jr. getting a little bit of booze and not necessarily being as embraced as the other guys were or whatever. So that's something to look forward to. But yeah, these guys can have this match with their eyes closed in their sleep, and I thought it was great. I thought just this is a traveling, it's not necessarily the exact traveling match, but it's these guys are at a point now where it's like, yeah, you could have this exact same match anywhere in the world, and it could probably deliver and be pretty damn good.
Well, there's a version of this match on every Friday night in the main event, with some, maybe with most of these guys involved. And yeah, they're just, it's always at minimum good. The floor is good. And every now and then it's great. I don't think this was a great one, but it was a good one, And Rocky Romero, look, I know we talked about it a little bit. Top 5 heel in pro wrestling, easy.
Oh,
I mean,
in
terms of heels as draws, I mean, there's The Rock, and he's in a league of his own, right? And then I guess Roman. What other heel in pro wrestling today is a bigger draw than Rocky Romero in Arena Mexico? I mean, go ahead and try to name.
Yeah, there's not many. And it's
not
like
5. He's a top 5 heel in pro wrestling.
And guess what? He also, when he's doing these things, the crowd's going absolutely fucking apeshit and booing him. It's not like he's just there. He's not a bystander. Right. He's not a bystander to, Mystico, he's just kind of following up on what Mystico does. I mean, he is the top heel in that company, and they boo the fuck out of him.
He is a key reason they've gotten hot. And he is a top 5 heel easy in pro wrestling. And that top 5 might be selling it. You can't put him ahead of The Rock. You probably can't put him ahead of Roman. That'd be preposterous. But who else? I'll argue anyone else. Am I missing someone obvious? I don't think I am.
Top heel. Yeah, I mean,
in terms of star heel, not like, and combined with performance.
Yeah.
I mean, Now look, here's the thing. He's not over in America. You put him on an AEW show, he makes no difference in the rating or the draw. You put him on an MLW show, it doesn't mean anything. But I'm talking in Arena Mexico. He just is.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just, I can't wrap my brain around that. Anything's possible in pro wrestling. It really is. I mean, it's you never know what's going to catch on. If he went to Japan, again, he wouldn't really mean anything. He'd have good matches, but this time, this place, this promotion, this building, the guy's on fire. And like you said, you can tell he's over as a heel. Like they hate this fucking guy. And then it was Danielson Blue Panthers. So I enjoyed the show.
Hell of a show. Yeah, I'm locked in. I'm locked in on CMLL now, man. I'm going to start trying to watch every Friday because not locked in on a lot of other wrestling right now. So this is working for me right now, CMLL. So I'm going to keep hitting it right as much as I can. So it's going to be an every Friday thing for me moving forward.
Yeah, and you know the other good thing about it, because I've been locked in for since last January, and look, they've been so good that they've gotten into our rotation of shit that we talk about.
Yeah,
ever since last January. We don't talk about every Friday, but we were doing those monthly wrap ups, or at least we were trying to. We might have missed a month here or there. We talk about all the big shows. We've been talking about them every week for the last couple of weeks this year. And it's the one thing about it is if you start watching regularly, it really helps you enjoy other wrestling too. I think one of the keys, the underspoken keys to keeping your interest level in pro wrestling high is watching a lot of different kinds of styles, because it keeps everything fresh. It's okay. So you're burnt out. We both watched this show burnt out on WrestleMania weekend. I didn't want to click play. I had just watched so much wrestling. But I watched this show, and I made sure I watched this before New Japan for that reason, because the style is so different. And I was hooked by the Lightning match because, this is different. And I was able to enjoy it from that standpoint. And then bounce over to New Japan and probably enjoy New Japan more than I would have if I would have just tried to watch New Japan after, I had that style mix in between. So I think that's like if you're struggling with trying to stay interested in wrestling, mix your styles up. Try some shit that you don't normally watch.
Yeah.
And that really does. I really believe that helps. Another thing I do is I'll bounce and go back to one of my territory projects that I'm doing, watching wrestling for pleasure instead of work, where, like when I was watching through 1987 Dying Days UWF, like if I pepper a little bit of that in, it's so different than anything today that it helps me appreciate and enjoy, when I have to watch my, third AEW TV show in the same week. It helps me not feel like I'm burning out. Anyway, I guess that's a good segue because we're going right to New Japan, right?
Let's do it. Let's talk about New Japan real quickly. Actually, before we get right to New Japan, a little bit of fallout from the All In Backstage video. They're doing copyright strikes on anybody that's sharing the video, and apparently it's not on their YouTube video yet. So I don't know what the heck is going on with that.
So things are going well.
Things are going great. The CM Punk chants in the arena. Jack Perry is going to come out on Windy City Riot to a barrage of CM Punk chants in Chicago. And people that are sharing the video are getting copyright strikes from AEW. So
fantastic.
All right.
Sounds great.
Sounds like exactly what the end result of this whole thing was supposed to be. All right, let's get to New Japan here. Sakura Genesis. I will admit, when I mentioned that I was burnt out, I watched the main event of Sakura Genesis. I tried like hell to watch the Never Openweight title, and I couldn't do it. Joe, you're going to have to do the heavy lifting on the rest of the show. I couldn't do the rest of the show.
Talk me through the show.
I'll talk you through the show. I could. I tried. I tried. I don't feel. New Japan doesn't let me feel anything right now. And
oh man, you're sucking the take out of one of the matches for me, but that's fine because then. But yeah, I just finished watching this show.
Okay, great.
2.5 hours ago, so it's all fresh.
Do you want me to lead?
My notes.
How about I lead up to the main event, because that's when you and I can reconvene. So let's
yeah.
Pre-show Frontier Zone. You didn't watch any of that shit, right?
Yes, I did.
Oh, because Yoshida was in it. I forgot. Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly what I watched, and I'm just watching this guy thinking, man, could his career have gone different? He's got presence.
He's got to be still 28 years old, right?
He's
31. Yeah. All right. Well,
he at this point in another timeline where Taka Michinoku isn't a fucking weirdo and the politics derailed it, he should be a New Japan full timer and maybe one of their next crop stars, and we all know what happened there with, Kayatai Dojo and Taka, and then Taka had to start up the, what is it? 2AW, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And with those sketchy politics, Ayato Yoshida, because he went with Taka, it's a 2AW, and they aren't affiliated with New Japan, and New Japan wanted to distance themselves from Taka for a while. And the funny thing is, now Taka's back.
Right, Taka's
back.
It's like Yoshida's he's still stuck in 2AW. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe the ship has just sailed, but he was there for a few years in and out of New Japan, and
people just heard the 2AW intro music there as I realized I hadn't subscribed to the YouTube channel. So there you go. Sorry, you got a little 2AW.
And he had that burgeoning rivalry with Shota Umino, remember?
Yeah.
And it was just such a shame. But yeah, that's why I did in fact watch the Frontier Zone, and of course the New Japan guys won. I love Oleg Boltin.
I do like Boltin. I do like him, yeah.
There's something there. So it was Oleg Boltin, Tomohiro Ishii, and Toru Yano over Ayato Yoshida, Chicharito Shoki, and Takuro Nikki in the Frontier Zone match.
All right, let's move on here. We have TMDK, Kosei Fujita, and Zack Sabre Jr. versus El Desperado and Ryusuke Taguchi. And Fujita and Zack Sabre Jr. get the win.
Not only that, but Fujita scored the fall.
Interesting.
And
okay.
He beat Taguchi. Now listen, look, I'm not going to go nuts over Taguchi eating a fall at this stage, because Taguchi is now to the point where he's not pushed. They don't put him in tournaments. He's an undercard veteran who loses. Like, that's his role now, right? But it's still interesting that Fujita got the pin, but then it made sense later because he's one of the guys who came out and challenged Sho. So, they easily could have just had Zack Sabre Jr. tie Taguchi in some fucking pretzel lock. You know what I mean? But instead, they had Fujita score the pin because they knew he was going to come out and challenge later. So that's just good old classic Gato booking right there.
We had LIJ, Bushi, and Hiromu defeating the War Dogs of David Finlay and Gato. This is not well received on Cage Match. I cannot imagine this is very good.
So, look, Chris Charlton's my boy. Chris, I know you're listening. Okay. I think you've come so far as a commentator.
He's great. He's good at play-by-play now. He's actually good at play-by-play now.
Yeah, he's carrying the play-by-play now, and he's doing this show with Jeff Cobb, and he's carrying the play-by-play, and Cobb's not that bad on color. Chris, you made me laugh out loud to the point I was snorting when Bushi wins this match. Okay? He beats Gato, and Chris says, and I quote, "That's a lot of momentum for Bushi." Chris, calm down. Listen, I understand you're doing your job. Okay.
Yeah, well, you don't know. I mean, this could have gotten maybe Bushi's. You're gonna be feeling like an idiot when Bushi's riding this wave of momentum into the Super Juniors.
That cracked me up. A lot of momentum for Bushi. The big win over Gato, who basically wrestles in street clothes now, by the way. He just gets in there with he may as well leave his little cap on, that little derby he wears. Like, he's just out there in his cargo pants and his fucking, I don't even know if he takes his wallet out of his pocket at this point. But I just thought that was funny. Now, look, I know the job's not easy. You got to think of things to say for all these dopey matches that nobody's paying attention to. But, that's like commentator, just generic commentator speak. You probably didn't even think about it. Like, a lot of momentum for Bushi. Big win over Gato. My God. All right, what was next?
Next up was just five guys: Dookie, Sonata, Yuya Uemura, defeating Callum Newman, Great Okan, Jeff Cobb of the United Empire.
Yeah, listen. I don't remember a goddamn thing about this match.
It does not sound memorable. So
I don't remember a fucking thing about this match.
You watched it, an hour ago? An hour or so ago? So, yeah, we'll move on. 2 hours at this point. All right. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team titles. The Bullet Club War Dogs, Clock Counters, and Drilla Maloney successfully defend their titles against Catch 2-2 for Francesco Akira, TJP, and the Intergalactic Jet Setters, Kevin Knight and Kushida.
So, I shit you not, I can send you a screenshot if necessary. Okay? My one and only note for this match was, I feel nothing. Just what you said at the top. Like, this was a quote-unquote good match with guys doing cool shit. I just sat through a whole weekend of guys in matches where there's 6 bodies flying around doing spots. That's number one. Now, this was a higher level than anything I saw WrestleMania weekend. Don't get me wrong. Okay. But there's no structure. It's 6 guys just flying around doing shit and doing it well. But I feel nothing. I feel nothing when I watch this and when I watch most of New Japan, which is the fucking House of Torture and War Dogs fucking showcase every show. I feel nothing.
Yeah.
Because I don't care about any of these people in this company right now. And that's something that, we'll see if they can get some people over that I'm more emotionally attached to in any way. But this match was just a blob of a spot fest that I know a lot of people enjoyed. And I just watched it with glazed over eyes and couldn't give a fuck what was happening. And I'll say this, the War Dogs as a unit or subunit are either the greatest workers of all time or they're the biggest assholes of all time, because I cannot fucking stand any one of them. They are so off-putting to me, and I know that's the gimmick. So they might just be incredible workers, because they've worked me into a shoot.
It's go away heat for me, man. I don't want to watch them, though. I don't know if that's good then, because I'm like, fuck off. I don't want to watch any of this shit.
That's exactly it. It's just they've worked. I to the point where I don't want them on my screen. They're just very annoying as a group in all the kind of wrong ways, because like you said, it makes me not want to watch. So anyway, Connors and Maloney retain the titles.
Bishiman, Goto and Yoshihashi defeat Chase Owens and Kenta to win back the IWGP Tag Team titles. It is back home with Bishiman, the tag team titles.
The right move. I know it seems redundant, but it's the right move. And this was way better than it had any right to be. It was better than it had any right to be. Now, was it great? No. Was it good? Yeah, it was good. Yeah, it was like a 3-star match. And at this point, with the state of Kenta and this tag team with Chase Owens, you'll take that. You'll sign up for that before the show starts.
Especially coming off of an airplane. I mean, this dude was in Defy, in WrestleMania weekend in Philadelphia, and then day later he's here. So that's, given the state of Kenta, the fact that he even appeared, conscious during this match is probably a benefit of it that did happen. So
yeah.
I got to know what happened here. Sho defeats Yo by referee stoppage in 1 minute and 36 seconds for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title. What happened here?
Just a bunch of junk, chasing them around with the fucking wrench and all this other nonsense.
Off. Okay, all right.
And then it turned into Fujita and then Dookie coming out to challenge Sho. And then Sho was talking shit to them, and Fujita had enough of it and climbed to the top and gave him like a flying knee to the face and knocked him out. So it was really just an angle. I don't know if Yo was injured and couldn't work, or I don't know, and I don't care. If you would have told me in like 2013 that
this
Sho
is the match
Yo
these guys would have
would turn out like this, I would have never believed you. Those guys were so great as Young Lions. They were the greatest Young Lions I've ever seen.
We came on the show and talked about it, how this is a once in a generation that you have two dudes here that can go out there and
in terms of the quality of matches they had. Now, I'm not talking upside. I'm not saying they were the greatest Young Lions I've ever seen in terms of the upside I felt. I'm just talking about they were the greatest Young Lions I've ever seen. And I've been watching a long time. They were the greatest Young Lions I've ever seen in the moment and the quality of matches they were having. That's what I'm talking about. And think about it. Since them, have any of these classes of Young Lions had matches as good as the matches they had?
No, man. Their matches used to be one of my favorite things to watch on the entire show. Like that used to be appointment viewing, is to watch the Yo versus Sho
draw.
Yeah.
Or until they started beating each other. Yeah. Like they had sometimes like the third or fourth best match on like a big show. Getting 8 minutes in a dark match or a pre-show match. They were the best Young Lions bell to bell. And part of it was because they were Young Lions for so long, because it took so long to have the next class ready to do the duties and everything. So I get that. And, because by the time they came back, they were in their 30s already, but still, and if you would have told me this was their career arc, I would have never believed it. I would think at worst, they would have been solid backbone workers on the roster. At this point, they can both just fuck right off. I have no interest in either one of them.
I never want to see either of them ever again. Yeah, apparently Yo suffered a dislocated shoulder 96, 98 seconds into the match.
So there you go. So I would imagine that Show was supposed to win anyway because of the big angle they did, right? So they lucked out from that standpoint. But yeah, I mean,
I'm sure this wasn't going to be Steamboat Flair without the dislocated shoulder, though. Let's be honest.
No, I don't have it. Look, I don't want to watch either one of these guys wrestle anyway. I mean, Yo is a weirdo. Like, that guy's just a weird person, and Show is just all gimmicked up with the House of Torture stuff. And I will say this, okay? I do have to say this to be fair. All of this shit is over with the people in these buildings. I mean, this show was hot from a crowd standpoint, and they drew 6632 to Sumo Hall for this. Last year they did 6510, so they basically did the same number they did last year for Sonata Okada. That was the title change. They actually did more. They did like 100 less, like a little more than 100 more, 110 more or whatever. Now listen, every show this year, basically same show comp has matched or slightly beaten the year before. They're doing okay at the gate, even though they're severely drained star power wise. Now, in comparison to where they are now, because if you go back to the pre-pandemic shows, Sakura Genesis shows,
right.
They were doing 10,000 in Sumo Hall. Okay. But it'd be unfair to compare this show to like 2017 when they did 10,200 fans. That doesn't make any sense. You compare them to last year. It has to be post-pandemic, the comparisons, because the pandemic is what killed all their momentum. Although I have a feeling New Japan would have cooled off without the pandemic too, but I think
it was gonna come, but that was just the harsh reality of the Band-Aid being ripped off was COVID and eventually
Exactly. COVID just sped it up. But they're holding up versus last year, and their numbers in America. That Chicago show has over 6,100 tickets.
Wild.
Out.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about that show here in a sec.
Okay, it's not gonna catch Sakura Genesis, but it's gonna come close. And they've got almost 2,000 tickets. I think they have 1,800 tickets out for Ontario, California, and nothing's announced for it yet. So that's gonna do over 2,000 in that little building. So from a ticket standpoint, New Japan is holding up okay. But they're not going to get back to putting 10,000 people in Ryogoku Kukugan until they fucking create some new stars. And look, I know we're going to get to the match, but look, Yota Tsuji is going to be an IWGP Heavyweight Champion. Yes. There's no doubt in my mind.
He's the guy.
I think they've gotten one.
They do. That was those are my notes. Is that the match itself?
And I'll save it till we get to it.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, we'll get there. But yeah, that is exactly what my note says. Is I think they got a guy. They got a guy if they want to make a guy. I think they got him.
Yeah, but they got to get some of the other. They got to get. Look, they're not all going to hit. If they all hit, you're going to have a fucking boom. But I think they got one. Anyway, let's keep going through so we can get to it.
So Moxley and Umino versus Jack Perry and Ren Narita. So a little preview for what we're going to get at Windy City Riot here.
It's a big win from Mox in front of Friday. That's what this was. He's teaming with his boy Shooter.
Yep.
And he hit Ren Narita with the fucking whatever he calls the DDT in this company. And, Jack Perry looked good. And... yeah, I thought Moxley would come out at the end of the show, but he didn't. That was weird.
I kind of thought so too. I kept watching the post match, and it just never happened. So, and then the Never Openweight title match with special guest referee Yoshinobu Kanemaru, Shingo Takagi defeating Evil to win the Never Openweight title.
Look, again, House of Torture's over. I mean, the crowd goes crazy for this shit. There's almost a certain charm to them, where they're not so much evil, they're just assholes, and the fans think it's funny. And yeah, they did a false finish with the ref knocked out and Kanemaru and all that, and then Shingo eventually won with the is it the Last of the Dragon or Made in Japan, which is the finisher, and the other one is the one
I always
Last
mix it
of
up
the Dragon,
too.
right?
I think it's Last of the Dragon, but
Well, you know why you mix it up? Because they fucking look identical. That's why you
they're
mix it
about
up.
the same. Yeah,
It's so stupid. Like, and then we're gonna have nerds in the chat. Well, actually, he starts from a fireman's carry with one, and he doesn't. Look, it's the same fucking move. The guy lands on his back, and Shingo's leg lands on top of the guy's chest. It's the same fucking move. He should get rid of the other one that isn't the finisher and come up with something else for a near fall. Do the fucking Blue Thunder Bomb like Sami Zayn does, and then look shocked when it doesn't win ever. Like, come up with something that looks different. I don't understand. It's like Naito with 19 different.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's a
versions of the
Destino,
fucking...
but he used the rope, so it's not a real Destino. It's like, oh, well.
And then he runs and does the Destino,
Yeah.
and then he come on, do something different. Anyway, he's your new Never champion.
Yeah, cool.
It was, it was exactly what you thought it would be, except a little better because Shingo's in it.
Yep. I tried to watch this match, and it was like the same thing I had when I tried to watch the clusterfuck. I was like, nah, I can't do this. So
I will admit, I did pop and enjoy Dick Togo as Bushi with the Bushi mask. That didn't fool anyone. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, they don't look.
And Chris going,
Oh,
that's Dick Togo. I saw Dick Togo. And he takes the mask off.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did enjoy that.
Then we get to our main event, Tetsuya Naito versus Yota Tsuji. Here's where I can jump in, and here's where I can say I love this match. I thought it was very, very good. Naito's had better performances. He's looked a lot better in the past, and I didn't think he was particularly great here, but I did think Yota Tsuji was very good. To me, he stood out. When this match was over, I said, okay, I didn't care that he didn't win. That's fine. I didn't need him to win. I don't think it was time for him to win. That's okay. I have no problem with that. I have no issue with holding it off. But with that said, they have a guy here. If they don't fuck this up, if they have a real desire to make this guy a guy, they have a guy here. He's got a crowd connection. He has an aura. He's got an it factor. His moveset has he's got a very main event style moveset. He carries himself like a main eventer. He moves around the ring like a main eventer. That Gene Blast is a great little move that he can hit out of anywhere. They got a guy here, and they do not need to fuck this up. They need to make sure that there is some whiteboard somewhere, some notebook somewhere that says this guy needs to be an IWGP champion sooner rather than later. And I know that Gato works molasses slow, and that's how he books, and I understand that, but man, this time next year, we got to be talking about this guy as a main eventer. They need to make a new main eventer in the worst way possible, and this guy is staring them right in the face. They got to do it with this guy.
I contend that he already is one. This is his second IWGP World Title match. I think that when the G1 rolls around, you're going to see him in some main event slots on some of the shows. I think he's there. Obviously he's not a mega draw or anything like that yet, but he can hold up his end of a show like this that does the same number as it did the year before with Okada in it.
Yeah.
So, we say that, but isn't he there already? I would say that he is. I think if you look at this roster, he's one of the top guys already.
Absolutely. He is. But is that just by attrition or
if it was attrition, this show would have done 4,500 fans, right?
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Because he held up his end of a main event that drew the same as last year, and he's and in the buildings he's over. So I think it's real, he's not someone who's catching on fire as a mega star that's going to take them to another level, but I think he's a legitimate top guy in this company. There's Naito, there's Sonata, there's and then you start struggling for names.
Yeah.
Zack Sabre Jr., I don't know.
He's another guy that I feel like is going to be sort of an attrition elevation there, where it's like, all right, well, I guess it's Zack Sabre Jr. We haven't really got anybody else here. So
you probably could have done this number with Zack, right?
Yeah. I think Naito's push is, or his pull is still, important enough that I think you put any competent main event adjacent sort of guy in that spot, and I think it's going to draw still pretty well. So I think that's probably
it is. That's true. Like you can't just say Naito obviously is the key here. There's no doubt about it. But okay, but does Naito Ren Narita do 6,600?
Probably not.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Probably
like
not.
Tsuji, I think he's clearly leaped ahead of those other guys, and it's good to see Fujita getting a little shove on this show. A junior, granted, but again, it's another guy. Look, when Sho is your junior champion, that division needs some fucking help. It obviously needs a break from Hiromu. and Despy has already been elevated. You need some more. And now, it looks like Fujita's going to get a little push. Fuck it. I hope they put the title on him.
Go for it. Yeah.
And it looks like they might do Fujita versus Dookie first instead of doing a 3-way. That's kind of how the commentary was talking. And then the winner will and I have a feeling Dookie would win that because I feel like Dookie's getting a little push this year. But I just fucking go with Fujita, You have to be careful just completely turning it over to young guys, though, because we've seen other promotions do that, and it doesn't always work, and it comes off forced, So you do have to kind of be careful just saying, all right, let's just push all the young guys. Because if people aren't ready for it.
Right, and it comes across desperate sometimes, too, where it's like, oh, God, we're in trouble. Here, all the young guys. We're pushing all the young guys. But
and it could do more harm than good sometimes.
Yeah, but Tsuji needs to be a dude who I think has got, like you said, G1 time. He's got to be a contender. Like I don't think he has to win the G1, but he's got to be a contender. He's got to be protected and be in the mix. And he's a smart wrestler as well. And I obviously Naito is well known for how smart he is about wrestling. So a lot of great callbacks in this. This is another professional, great job by Chris Charlton on the play-by-play. Jeff Cobb, nice guy, Jeff Cobb. But,
I thought Cobb was okay.
He was like, you grabbed Jeff Cobb and said, "Hey, Jeff, we need you to do commentary," and he went, "Oh, all right." And he did commentary, and it wasn't, you got the perspective from a guy, you know what I mean? A dude that's just, I thought he was fine. Yeah. But no, Charlton was great in here. And for people that did not see this match, or if you maybe missed this bit of the match, but Charlton did kind of hit it home on the English commentary, was Tsuji putting in the Boston Crab to Naito, because that's how Naito beat Tsuji before he sent him away on excursion. So instead of hitting him with Destino, Naito essentially just said, you're not really worth it. I'm just going to put you in the Boston Crab. Kind of a Walls of Jericho style, move. And that's how he sent Tsuji out. So Tsuji, towards the end of the match, decided, fuck it, I'm going to put you in this Boston Crab, and I'm going to try to get you to tap out. I'm going to win your title with this Boston Crab. And the fans kind of knew it. Tsuji played it up. Charlton played it up on commentary, so I thought that was really cool. And then obviously you have Naito doing his own Gene Blast as well. So this was really cool. There's a lot of good back and forth between these two guys. A real a match that felt like it had some stakes, and I felt like I was watching a future guy. And it gave me a little bit of hope in New Japan right now, because it's really hard to feel much in New Japan. That's kind of the theme of this review. But I felt something when Tsuji was making that rally. It was like, okay, hold on a minute. They got a guy here. They got a guy, and now I can feel some amount of hope for New Japan right now, because there's really just not a lot that I can really hang my head on with New Japan overall. But this match made me feel a little bit better about it.
If you're trying to be a little more positive, you can look at it from the standpoint of they're clearly in a rebuild, but the attendance is holding up, which is like a good sign. So they're not bottoming out even further with the loss of some star power. They're holding up. And they just got this guy convincingly at this point over to where he's a credible main eventer. Now it's just a matter of getting some other ones there. So that would be the optimistic view. But, the question is, can they get them there? And, we'll see. We all know who they are. We've been talking about them for months. And there's going to have to be some bold moves. I think this is not going to be a G1 where, like last year, where these guys were out there losing the Hikuleo. No more of that.
No, that's got to stop.
No more of that. And no more just wrestling each other, okay? Let's get them in blocks and have them be contenders for the blocks. They don't have to win the blocks. They don't have to win the G1, but they need to be in the mix. And they have to have, exciting matches and be in, they don't need to be working openers on the big G1 shows against Chase Owens either. They need to be at the top against your Naitos and your Shingos and your Zack Sabre Juniors, and winning some of those matches and being
winning them. Yeah, I think that's important. Like I said, those guys need to be protected and in the mix in the G1 this year. I think they absolutely have to do that. It's definitely time. So we were told that, and I swear to God I watched the entire video, but we're told, and I looked it up, that Moxley did come out afterwards and confront Tetsuya Naito. I swear to God I watched the entire video. I
must have turned it off before that happened then.
When did it happen then? Because I swear I waited like 5 minutes after the Naito thing.
You know what? Are we being fucking lied to? Let me see.
I'm looking it up right now. I'm looking it up on the F4W online recap. Says, following the conclusion of Tetsuya Naito's successful main event title defense against Yota Tsuji, Moxley made his way back to the ring to confront Naito, and they agreed to Naito's title being on the line in Chicago.
I must have turned it off. I saw Naito spit in Kadani's face and throw him out of the ring. Was it before or after that?
It had to be after, because I saw that for sure.
because Naito he deked him. He said, "Come on in for the fist bump," and Kadani was like, "Okay," and then he like threw him out of the ring. That I saw. So it must have been after that.
So apparently, Jack in a note of chat room was saying it was a while after the whole ceremony and such, if I'm remembering correctly. So I guess I didn't wait around.
I'm not sticking around for that shit. How much of my time do they want?
Right. Watched a lot of wrestling this week. I don't have time for sitting through award ceremonies and shit and novelty checks and stuff. Yeah, get out of here.
Here's Yota Tsuji after the confetti falls, and they now they're taking Tsuji out. Okay, on my file, Moxley doesn't come out. I just went through the whole fucking thing. Hold on, I got.
This is what I'm saying. I think I watched the same file as you. I think. I don't know. I swear to God, I went to the end of the file. I swear I went to the end of the file.
Oh wait, here he is. Oh yeah, there he is.
Okay, well, I don't know.
All right, whatever. Listen, how long do they expect me to keep this thing running? I'm a busy man. I got baseball games. I got 3 fantasy teams. I got kindergarten. I got whatever grade they're in. I don't fucking know. Getting report cards. I got shit to do over here. I find out today the boy called his teacher bro.
Oh, okay.
He's like, come on, bro.
You can't do that.
I had to have a little chat with him.
Yeah, you can't do that. Yeah, you can't.
I'm like, listen, unacceptable. It's got to be Miss Cobb or ma'am. None of this bro shit.
Oh, we called her bro, not him bro.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah.
On top of everything else, he's calling his teacher bro. Had a
hey,
little
bro. He got a little Matt Riddle.
Kids,
got a little Matt Riddle over there. Yeah.
So like, these kids, they can't get away with nothing anymore because you know what they do. They got a folder that they bring home every day, and they got number codes for the behavior. So they either get a smiley face if they were good, or they get like, let's say, a number 2, and then you look at the little key, and number 2 is like talking out of, like talking in class or whatever the case may be. And then we got to sign that shit and send it back with them the next day.
Yeah.
It ain't like when we were in school where you could be a fucking animal and your parents would never know. They would
only maybe know at parent-teacher conferences, maybe, and that's if your parents went, and my parents never did.
The thing is, there was no email or anything,
right? So
I would take the notice and throw it in the garbage, so my parents would never know when it was. You know what I mean? Like you could get it was so much different back then. Parent-teacher conference note that never even made it back to the fucking house.
Right? They could put a note in their profile now, and then you can go to their can't you check all their grades and shit too? So
everything, it's incredible.
My parents never knew any of my grades. They were like, "Are you doing good?" And I'm like, "I think so." And they're like, "All right, fine, whatever." Sure.
I get the automated phone call when they don't go to school and they're in first grade. Like, just to let you know, your child isn't in school. Like, you can't cut if you're in high school anymore.
Yeah.
It's kind of disturbing.
That's tough. Yeah, that's not.
A kid should cut school now and then. It's like a rite of passage. It's normal.
I didn't because I got free White Sox tickets, and in hindsight, I realized that value was not worth it. Throwing me some $10 White Sox upper deck tickets for perfect attendance. At the time, it felt like a great deal, but in hindsight, probably should have just skipped school. Anyway,
get away with nothing. So he's calling the teacher bro. Like,
hey, bro. Yeah, come on, bro. I love the bro.
Yeah.
Bro, come on, bro. What was the context? What happened here?
I think she explained something to him, and he was like, "All right, bro." Like,
this kid sounds like an asshole.
Yeah, he's like, "All right, bro." And
man, if like a 7-year-old said that to me, I'd be like, "What the fuck's wrong with your kid, man? What are you doing here?" Yeah, you gotta have it. Yeah, that's a talk. That's a talk.
I did. I had a talk with him. I was like, "Look, no more of that." It's there'll be no more switch. I made all the threats. Don't worry, I took care of it. All I have to do is threaten to take the Fire Stick remote out of their room.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, they'll do anything. No, because they can't live in their room without the YouTube.
Yeah, without watching
and
something.
The fucking Disney Plus.
Here's what you got to do though, and this is a tip from when I was growing up. You have to stay up on the technology because they're reached a point where my dad didn't understand the technology anymore.
Mm.
And there was one time where he's like, "Well, I'm going to take away your game system or whatever." And I was like, "Great, you figure out how to unplug it and hook it back up, whatever." And he went back there and he was just like, "All right, you know what?
Take the controllers.
Just stop it."
Gotta take the controllers or the games.
Right. He didn't he like it. I had finally gotten ahead of him because like I would get these game systems and he'd be like, you set these things up. You know what I mean? Like I think he set up my Nintendo, but once I got a Genesis and a Dreamcast and that stuff, he's like, all right, I now I'm out. I don't understand. Before it was like the dumb cable thing, he used to be able to put, and then when we got to like, VGA adapters and fucking RCA cables and stuff, he was gone at that point. And controllers, like wireless he had no idea what he was doing with that stuff. So eventually he was just like, all right, I don't know how to do this. So you're going to have to just don't be bad anymore. And I wasn't usually bad, but that's, you got to stay up in the tech so that like, oh, this is what matters to you. So I'm going to take this away. Or my dad would be like, I'm going to unplug your cable. And I'm like, great, I'll just play video games all day. You know what I mean? It's like, fine. You got to make sure you know where the tech is, what they're in on, and what the big thing is. And then you'll have the advantage over them. But anyway. All right, let's talk about Windy City Riot real quick and then get out of here. This is coming up on Friday. I will not be at the show because I am going to California for a classic vacation. So for the record, I had my vacation booked and paid for months before Windy City Riot was announced. So before people go, you're leaving for another, there's a show in New Japan and you're leaving. I'm sorry. I had this thing planned many, many months in advance. Naito versus Jon Moxley, IWGP World Heavyweight title. Mox is winning this title, man, right? I think he's the favorite.
That's what a lot of people think, but I don't know how much sense it makes. I think it might be I don't know. I don't know how much sense it makes because I don't know how often he could be over there.
I don't love it. I don't love it. I think it's cool for your American audience to show like, hey, come to one of these shows and you might get to see one of these things. But for your Japanese audience, though, it's gonna be rough, man. They're lacking in star power, and now you're gonna take that title away, presumably, and have this guy that's maybe only there a couple times a year, depending on when he loses it or how many times he's gonna defend it. I wouldn't do it. I would keep it on Naito, but interested to see what they do.
You could do something like this a little later in the year when all you have to do is get through like one major show.
Yeah, or you have a tournament, or you have a tournament that takes the time up, like
or something.
You can also do it later in the year because you had like the World Tag League or whatever, and it's like, that's fine. That guy's gonna come back at Wrestle Kingdom or whatever, or you can do something like that. But yeah, it seems awfully risky to do it. I guess you have Super Juniors, so I guess you can kind of, but that, I don't know.
No, there's too many big shows. I mean, because I don't know when he'd come back, how often he could be there. And I mean, Forbidden Door's always coming up though, and
that might be it. It might be from now until Forbidden Door, and then at Forbidden Door they lose it. And
look, if nothing else, the possibility makes it an interesting match.
Definitely, yeah, for sure.
Rather than if he was like wrestling Jack Perry or something,
right.
He's not going to win.
Ishii versus Nick Nemeth, non-title.
Yeah, because Nemeth is there. The match they're building is Nemeth Tanahashi, but Tanahashi's out, so it's going to be just a work rate match, and we'll see if Nemeth could have an Ishii style match because we know that if this match isn't great, it's not on Ishii. So we'll see if Nemeth watches tape and understands what he's dealing with here, but.
I haven't loved Nemeth so far, so we'll see.
He's been fine. Perfectly fine. He cut a really corny promo on Ishii. I don't know if you saw it.
I didn't. No, I didn't.
It was more, he cut it in his backyard in front of like his fucking Playboy Mansion style pool, because of course he would have one of those. But
like a pagoda, you had like a pagoda, like the cliffs.
Yeah, there's like the
rocks
fake cliffs,
the fake rocks. Yeah, of course.
The grotto or whatever.
Yeah, the grotto. That's the word I was looking for. Not pagoda, the grotto. Yeah.
And it's basically a promo on Tanahashi, waiting for him to come back. He's like, and then he talked about Ishii, and then like at the end of the promo, he pauses and like points his fingers, and then like this rock music starts playing. It's just, it's not. It's
oh, you know what? I do know the one you're talking about. Yeah, he's got the palm trees and the rocks and stuff. Yeah, just an annoying pool, like just such a fucking annoying pool. Yeah,
yeah. He's calling himself the completist or the Dick Diddler or something. I know he's calling himself something. And he's like,
Diddler. I don't think it's the Dick Diddler.
He's got a little nickname, and then the song was the, I can't think of it, but he's it's almost cute how hard he's trying, to be like a pro wrestler. But he hasn't really been great.
Elsewhere on the show, we have the New Japan World Television title match. Matt Riddle defending against Zack Sabre Jr. Riddle as well. I'm going to throw him into the same pocket. Haven't really loved the effort that I've seen, but him versus Zack Sabre Jr. I mean, that's a good guy to have a good match with, and it's going to be a more familiar territory, a more familiar area for Matt Riddle. So I don't see any reason why this isn't good, but we'll see. We'll see if Riddle has working boots on.
Yeah. Listen, Riddle and Ziggler are in there with guys who they should be able to have great matches with. Period. So we'll see.
Riot Rules match. We got question mark. A lot of question marks and Eddie Kingston versus a lot of question marks and Gabe Kidd. So Riot Rules, bunch of dudes, and Eddie Kingston versus Gabe Kidd and a bunch of dudes.
Be a bunch of fucking war dogs, and who knows who Kingston's gonna dig up. But I don't know. How can I break something down?
Yeah, hard to know when we don't know who the 6 of the competitors are in the match. So one last guy to add to the pile here, Mustafa Ali versus Hiromu Takahashi. Again, another guy who you have no excuse to have a bad match with, but
that's right.
Have not loved Ali's stuff either. This is a make or break weekend for all 3 of those dudes.
Really
it's like,
is.
all right, look, if you can't have a good match with Ishii, Zack Sabre Jr., and Hiromu, then we know exactly where you guys stand moving forward. We know now. And now it's good. You know what? I need a weekend like this where I can really know, okay, I don't even have to pretend of, hey, this guy may be in the right situation. We'll know. We'll know after this weekend if these guys are going to deliver or not. Because how do you not deliver against these 3 dudes?
You think the WWE guys are drawing the house?
I think Moxley and Naito is drawing the house more than anything else. I don't think Nemeth is drawing a house. I don't think maybe Ali, because it is Chicago. Maybe there is an interest in watching him. I don't know if Riddle or Nemeth are having any real impact.
I don't think it hurts.
It doesn't hurt. It adds to the.
You're a wrestling fan. You see, you vaguely know of New Japan. You see Moxley in the main event. And then you look on the undercard and say, oh, I know Matt Riddle and Nick Nemeth and Ali. That's where I think it helps.
It's a very familiar show in a lot of ways, thanks to the names on there. Jack Perry versus Shota Umino. Obviously, Jack Perry now, after today's events, will be, as he was going to be bombarded with CM Punk chants, but now he'll be bombarded 10 times over in Chicago with CM Punk chants. So that should be great. Cool. And maybe he's done here. I don't know if he's done in New Japan, going back to AEW. I don't know the plan anymore. I have no fucking idea what they're doing with Jack Perry.
All I know is he's a sympathetic figure at this point.
Yep, for sure. New Japan Strong Openweight Tag Team Title 4 Corners match. Hey, Joe, you wanted matches with guys doing stuff? Well, here you go. You got Gorillas of Destiny, Phantasmo and Hikuleo defending against Fred Rosser and Tom Lawler, TMDK, Mad, Mikey Nichols, and Shane Haste, and the West Coast Wrecking Crew of Terrell Nelson and Royce Isaacs. Yeah, no, thank you. Don't love.
Why? You cannot. You could just have a tag and you don't have to book 4 people and pay their flights and pay their draw. You know what I mean? It's just such a fucking waste of money. It doesn't make your show better. It does not make your show better, and it doesn't sell a ticket. Is Jarrell Nelson selling a ticket?
Jarrell Nelson has not sold 1 ticket.
I mean, is Mad Mikey Nichols selling a ticket?
I can assure you, Mad Mikey Nichols is not selling a ticket. So
how much is the flight from Australia?
Probably not cheap.
$1,000?
Yeah, probably.
I mean,
yeah.
What's the point of this shit? Why do they do this? Why does can a promoter please explain why you people do this? I know you listen. I would love to know the answer. I'm watching these WrestleMania weekend shows. Why is there an 8-man scramble? You're paying 6 extra people. Well, I know you're paying them.
You're assuming they pay. You're assuming they pay these people.
But still, I know you're paying them a pittance, and I'm not saying they even deserve more. I mean, I'm not one of these people. Oh, they need a living wage. Shut up. Live in the real world. You can't pay a living wage to indie wrestlers, you stupid commies. But there's no point paying as many people as you pay.
Right.
You don't need to pay. You don't need to book these shows with 6 matches, 2 tags, some singles.
Let's do it.
You're in, you're out.
Yeah.
You're going to draw the same anyway.
You're going to get 125 people no matter what you book. So maybe don't book 77 people on your show that's going to have 125 people in the audience. But
yeah,
that's what happens on the indies there. New Japan Strong Women's Title match. You got Stephanie Vakir versus Azumi, so that should be pretty fun. I like both those Both those women there, and then Minoru Suzuki versus Ren Narita. You have a couple pre-show matches as well. I forget what I don't have them in front of me, but a couple pre-shows. Windy City Riot.
Looking forward to it. Looking forward to it.
Should be a good little show. So, do you want to mention, too, we have our friends at the Keeping It Strong Style podcast. We like those guys. I've been a guest on their show before. They're doing a meetup at the VU Rooftop Bar April 12th, 4 p.m., just before the show. So, right across the street from the Wintrust Arena. So, if you want to stop by and say hi to those guys, wanted to give a plug out of the way for them. So, make sure you do that. I initially wrote...
Absolutely.
I initially wrote the UV rooftop,
guys.
and that's a different experience.
You're sending people to the wrong fucking bar.
No, I got it. It's across the street.
Go listen to all their shows too.
Yeah, those guys do a great job.
The Lanza endorsement.
Yeah, Keeping It Strong Style, Social Suplex Podcast Network. They do a good job.
Kiss for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do a great job.
If only there wasn't a very popular act that uses that act. No, that's okay. That's okay.
They're just as popular. Come on, they're right on the. They're nipping at their heels. So
don't let Gene Simmons see that though. He is litigious.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, that's true.
He will come after you, young boy, and Lata. He will come after all of you.
Jeremy, he's coming for you. Yeah, watch out.
Yeah, all of the whole crew. You don't fuck with Kiss.
Anyway, so there you go. VU Rooftop Bar. I believe it's at the hotel that's right across from the Wintrust Arena. So 4 p.m. if you want to do the meet up there. Of course, like I said, I will not be there, unfortunately, because I'm jetting off to lovely Joshua Tree National Park a little bit after we're done doing this show here.
Joshua Tree, wasn't that a U2 album?
It was a U2 album. Yeah, they recorded it there. So.
Yeah. Oh, they recorded it at the fucking tree?
Yeah, not the tree. There's multiple trees. It's a type of tree.
Wait, it's more than one tree?
It's more than one tree. It's not. I'm not going to California to look at one tree. No, there's multiple trees.
You're going to the Joshua Trees.
Joshua Tree National Park is what they call it. Yeah, because there's many Joshua trees at this national park.
They recorded an album in a national park.
Yes.
Bears running around and shit.
I don't. Not too many bears out there. It's kind of deserty.
Was it a venue?
I'm going back to a desert.
I'm back
to the desert. No, it was like a little recording studio, a little hotel recording studio thing. Yeah.
In the woods.
It's a desert, but yeah, sure.
I gotta research this.
You got
the desert.
It's the desert. There's trees in a desert
with trees.
Yes.
Like copperhead snakes and shit.
I think there are snakes. Yeah, there are less bears, more snakes. I don't know about copperheads. So I don't know anything about snakes. I don't know about snakes, but maybe some rattlers. I think you get rattlers out there. I think you get rattlesnakes, not copperheads.
Diamondback.
Because aren't the copperheads? Aren't those in like the swamps of India and stuff? I don't think they're.
Yeah, I don't. Right. Like cobra. You got some cobras out there.
Right. I don't think.
Well, I'm just naming snakes now. You got pythons. There's some pythons. I guess out there?
No. Actually, copperheads are more like they're like the swamps of like East Coast. You know what I mean? Like South Carolinas and Louisianas and those sort of types there. So.
What, pythons?
No. Copperheads.
Oh, copperheads.
I don't know where pythons are from.
Like
I don't want to know where pythons are from. Yeah, I don't want to be wherever they're from. Yeah, wherever there's those, I don't really want to get involved. Wherever there's like massive snakes in water, I'm good.
Is this where they have the Burning Man? What is that?
It's close to where they have the Burning Man. It is very close to where they have Coachella as well, which apparently is happening the weekend we're there, but we'll be away from the Coachella hype. So.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I know. I really wanted to see a bunch of artists that I don't know any of their music. So
maybe the Doja Cat will be there.
She might be. I don't know. I briefly looked at the lineup and I was like, man, I don't know who any of these people are. Man, I'm so old. It's just like, fuck, who are any of these people?
They could just make up half the names and you wouldn't know.
I would know.
Yeah,
I was on the site
because
I was like,
Slutty Mermaids will be there. You're like, all right,
sweet, great.
Slutty Mermaids. Yeah, sounds awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the Deftones, I guess, are there. I know the Deftones. Doja Cat is going to be there.
I told you.
Doja Cat is going to be there.
That is a Coachella act. If there was ever a Coachella act, it's the Doja Cat.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
I'm scrolling. Little Ice Spice. I'm aware of Ice Spice. I don't know if I know any of Ice Spice's songs.
Ice Spice. I know some Ice Spice songs.
Yeah.
Now you're talking TLB's language.
Okay.
I know what's going on.
I'm scrolling. Lana Del Rey, she's a Coachella.
Do you want to know
how much Little Uzi Vert? Little Uzi Vert.
Do you want to know how much sex I've had to Lana Del Rey?
Quite a lot. I would like to have sex with Lana Del Rey, if we're being honest. But...
TLB loves fucking to the Lana Del Rey.
Interesting. Okay, I'll have to try that.
Yeah. And she wants to have a lot of sex with Lana Del Rey too.
Let's go.
I've been told that many times.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
She's like, I would throw you out of this bedroom.
And you had to. You can't compete with that.
In a nanosecond to take a crack at Lana Del Rey. I'm like, look, I can't. What am I supposed to say?
You can't compete with that. Yeah,
I can't.
So that's all I got for Coachella. But anyway, so I am not on the show next week, so Joe, we'll figure that out. So.
Oh wait, Blur is going to be there.
Oh shit! I gotta. Well, hold on a minute.
Woohoo!
Of course, you're gonna get Blur-splained. People get really mad when you only attribute song 2 to Blur.
So what? What are they gonna do about it?
They're just gonna get mad at you. I'll just tell you. They're gonna Blur-splain you. I'm just gonna tell you.
They're not gonna do shit. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna
think you're gonna get Blur-splained.
Listen, what do I always ask about artists? What's my number one question?
What's their top 40 hit?
And what's their top 40 hit?
Song 2.
Nope. Say it.
I'm not, because I don't want to get splained.
Do it.
I'm not doing
Woo-hoo! That's it.
You're doing
if I go to a Blur show, what do you want to hear? You don't want to hear song number 8, okay? You want to hear woohoo! That's what you want to hear.
I gotta take a little bit of umbrage here on. So they're on April 13th. Blur, they're the sub headliner to Tyler the Creator. I don't know about that.
You're not a big Tyler the Creator.
He's fine, but man, Blur, you get Blur, you gotta. The Deftones are like 9th for the top on their night. That kind of stinks.
Here's the problem with Tyler the Creator. It sounds like a children's show, like a cartoon, like it'd be a wacky kids character.
Yeah.
You know, Tyler the Creator, like Bob the Builder, like a knockoff Bob the Builder.
Yeah, it's a dollar store Bob the Builder.
Exactly.
It's the WB version.
He's the KB Toys version of Bob the Builder. And you got to go to Toys R Us to get Bob the Builder toys, and you go to KB to get the Tyler the Creator. It's like Transformers and GoBots. Like he's the GoBots to Transform.
The Digimon to the Pokemon. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Thank you for bringing my 80s reference to the
90s, the late 90s.
Yeah.
Also distant past, but that's all right. Yeah. Brought it back to 1999. Yeah.
I thought Digimon was like a spin-off of Pokemon.
No, not at all.
No, all right. I thought I didn't know it was a knockoff competitor. I thought it was like,
Yeah, it was Bandai's competitor to Pokemon. Yeah. The digital monsters. So.
Oh, yeah.
You got pocket monsters. Now you have digital monsters. So, all right. That is it for us. So that is it for the flagship. Tons of bonus audio for us at flagshippatreon.com. So if you want more of us for some ungodly reason, if you want to hear us review so many WrestleMania weekend shows, break down WrestleMania, break down ROH Supercard of Honor, you can do all that over at flagshippatreon.com. A very, very interesting and incredible job done for Match of the Week. This week, an Eclipse themed match of the week that started as kind of a joke and ended up being a huge bit of research and uncovering something that a lot of people didn't know about in the world of Lucha with some help from our friend, the Cubs fan Lucha blog. So definitely go and read Match of the Week this week over at flagshippatreon.com. Really, really great work done by you there. So plenty of other stuff available at flagshippatreon.com in addition to all the audio. We talked about the Mike and JD show. We talked about Open the Voice Gate. Make sure you subscribe to the Voice of Wrestling Podcast Network on your podcast app of choice. Also subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com. Let's look up Voices of Wrestling. You'll be able to find us there. And voicesofwrestling.com/Discord if you want to join in on the conversation on Discord. That is it for us. So that is Joe. I'm Rich. We'll talk to you again next time. Take care. Bye.
Hi, I'm Case Lowe, co-host of the Open the Voice Gate podcast. The one question I'm constantly asked when it comes to Dragon Gate is how do I get into the promotion? Well, stop asking and start listening to the Open the Voice Gate podcast, released every Wednesday on the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. For exclusive news and show reviews, look no further than the leader in Dragon Gate coverage, Open the Voice Gate.